Chapter 173. Fifth update, ending at 0:00, should be 65 votes. Complete. Boom. 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 At the same time, endless flames surged into Qinhao's mind and quickly occupied it. At this moment, Qinhao's soul power, which was many times stronger than that of ordinary people, was able to maintain a trace of consciousness in the pain of his soul being crushed and minced. However, an extremely terrifying fluctuation was produced from the depths of his mind. It directly connected with the endless sea of flames, causing him to really fall into a coma in an instant, following in the footsteps of Li Yifeng, Yang Fan, and Ni Jianpain. However, Qinhao did not know that unlike Li Yifeng and the other two, he did not disappear in this space. Instead, he rose up and slowly floated in front of Tantai-Lien, directly merging into the shadow that had just formed in front of Tantai-Lien. Rumble. The raging flames bloomed and burned wantonly at this moment. Tantai-Lien's fiery red eyes, which were like burning stars, connected with Qinhao's eyes through two fiery red light pillars. Below them, the divine beast vermilion bird formed by the flames suddenly opened its mouth. Its mouth was not big, but it emitted a power that could swallow the world. Ga. A loud and strange cry suddenly sounded. Qinhao and Tantai-Lien, as well as the pure yang energy in the entire palace, suddenly surged into the divine beast vermilion bird's mouth along with its cry. Huff! 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 After their bodies entered the vermilion bird's body, they were instantly engulfed by the raging flames. Their clothes finally turned into ashes at this moment. Tantai-Lien's graceful and delicate body was clearly presented in front of Qinhao. At this moment, the fiery red light pillars emitted from Tantai-Lien's eyes seemed to fluctuate violently a few times, but after a moment, they calmed down again. Unfortunately, for a man, Qinhao, who had lost consciousness, could not appreciate such a seductive scene. After a short moment, their naked bodies were engulfed by the raging flames. Under the guidance of a mysterious energy, both of them automatically crossed their legs. Their palms were connected, and their eyes were still connected by light pillars. They had entered an extremely mysterious state. The vermilion bird's body formed by the flames became smaller and smaller, and the flames that enveloped Qinhao and Tantai-Lien's bodies turned from red to white, then to blue, and finally to dark blue flames. Their bodies turned completely red, and black impurities constantly seeped out. Tantai-Lien's body in particular was tens of times more than Qinhao's. If they hadn't been burned to ashes the moment they appeared, the stench would have suffocated the two of them to death. As time passed by, their red bodies started to glow with a white light. Then, they started to change color bit by bit, just like flames. After 4 hours, their naked bodies had turned a deep blue color that was completely integrated with the flames. Boom! At the 6th hour, a dense qi suddenly emitted from between Qinhao's and Tantai-Lien's eyebrows at the same time. Especially Qinhao, the qi he emitted was several times more powerful than Tantai-Lien's. And it was also at this moment that Qinhao's consciousness, which had sunk into a complete coma, finally gradually awakened. However, his body was still out of his control. Streaks of scorching blue flames flowed through the meridians in his body, following a mysterious path. Qinhao's mental energy tendrils allowed him to clearly feel that at this moment, he seemed to have become one with another person's body. Another person, Qinhao naturally knew that it was Tantai-Lien. Moreover, in his current state, Qinhao sensed the mystery of the fusion of yin and yang between heaven and earth. It was just like when he and Xia Yuyu had dual cultivated the 9 cycles of heavenly yang and earthly yin formula. However, the method of circulation was completely different now. Although it was not necessarily as mysterious as the heavenly yang and earthly yin formula, his body was constantly filled with vigorous and pure yang energy. Furthermore, it was being absorbed by him, as if it was completely unaffected by his cultivation realm. What surprised Qinhao was that in the depths of his mind, there seemed to be a figure that was no different from the vermilion bird he had seen just now. However, at this moment, it was very small, and its aura was not strong. It was more like a little bird. Its body was still like flames, but it carried a faint golden light. Those sharp and clear eyes, as Chinhao sized it up, actually revealed a human-like smile. At this moment, something that shocked Chinhao even more happened. Congratulations on obtaining the inheritance of our Phoenix clan. I am Phoenix. The thing that looked more like a little bird actually spoke human language in Chinhao's mind. Its voice was tender, like that of a little boy. Congratulations on obtaining the inheritance of our Phoenix clan. I am Phoenix. Almost at the same time, the same voice sounded in Tan Tai Lian's mind. The voice was also tender, like that of a little girl. Phoenix? This, isn't the inheritance of the vermilion bird? After a short moment of surprise, Chinhao immediately asked curiously. Inheritance of the vermilion bird? Hee hee. You humans often confuse our Phoenix clan with the vermilion bird. We do indeed look very similar to the vermilion bird. However, there is a big difference. Look, is the vermilion bird as handsome as me? It's also not as beautiful as Phoenix. Right, what's your name? Chinhao. Oh, Chinhao, the existence in your mind is very powerful. If he doesn't allow it, I will still. I won't say any more. The phoenix spoke halfway when it suddenly raised its claws in Chinhao's mind, and very human-like covered its face. It seemed to be very scared. Chinhao was slightly surprised, and immediately thought of the discussion about the sword spirit. It was obvious that the little bird was threatened by the mysterious existence. Alright, Chinhao, now I'm still controlling your body. Quickly comprehend it yourself. In a while, you will be controlling it. Originally, as long as you fuse with Phoenix's yin and yang, your cultivation realm will increase even more, but... I won't say any more, I really won't say any more, don't. What shocked Chinhao was that the little bird seemed to be strangled by its neck. It struggled, waved its claws, and cried out loudly. After a while, it fell on the ground that Chinhao's mind had condensed. It was obvious that it had been thrown by someone. Chinhao did not ask. However, he frowned. From the little bird's words, Chinhao already knew that the so-called fusion of yin and yang, other than that kind of thing, what else could it be? I really won't say any more, Chinhao, quickly. Before the little bird could finish its words, Chinhao's mind suddenly rumbled. Chinhao involuntarily jumped out of his mind, and his mind returned to his body. What on earth is it? Why is it so domineering? Damn it, this is my mind. Chinhao felt like he had become a sparrow. He was even worse than a little bird. That thing had actually treated him as a turtle dove and blasted him out of his mind. What kind of fucking world was this? Although he cursed, at this moment, Chinhao felt a little grateful to that existence. At least, his virginity was preserved by that thing. Although Chinhao did not care about such things, he was now too young. Secondly, he did not want to have too many fetters. Thirdly, and most importantly, many of the cultivation techniques in the Taoist secret manual required one to maintain one's primordial yang, which was also the body of a virgin, in order to cultivate. If he really broke it now, he would lose a lot for a small gain. What's more, Tan Tai Lian would probably not be happy about it. After all, the two of them did not have that kind of relationship. For such a thing to happen, it meant that they had to rely on this kind of thing to establish a relationship. In other words, they had to conquer each other's bodies and conquer each other's minds. It was a bit of a reverse order, and Chinhao did not like it. Moreover, the most important thing was that Chinhao and Tan Tai Lian were considered to be partners. He could not turn a blind eye to her. He had to be responsible. Strange, it's clearly possible. Why can't it? While Chinhao was immersed in the mysterious energy, Tan Tai Lian was also communicating with Phoenix in her mind. Phoenix's human-like eyes met Tan Tai Lian's mind, and she muttered to herself in puzzlement. What's clearly possible, but it can't. Phoenix and my inheritance can clearly allow you to fuse your yin and yang with him, and raise your realm by several levels, but why is there no progress now? It's so strange. Wait, let me ask Phoenix. Although Tan Tai Lian's mind was in her mind, when she heard Phoenix's words, she instantly felt ashamed. If she was in control of her body, she was afraid that she would be directly awakened from her cultivation state, and even go mad. Although Tan Tai Lian was a young girl, how could she not know what the so-called fuse their yin and yang meant? Don't ask, he doesn't like me. Towards him. Anyway, don't ask. It's fine like this, I've already advanced to 4th stage Yi Zone, which is very high. And it's still rising. Tan Tai Lian said in a panic. However, Phoenix's eyes seemed to have not heard her words, and fell into a dull state. After a full 2 minutes, she regained her senses and said, "Little Lian, you should first comprehend the mystery of the energy movement in your body. Later on, you will be in control of your body. Go, don't worry, it won't happen anymore. You have to work hard to make him like you. Otherwise, what am I going to do? I'm going to be separated from Phoenix." Hiss hiss hiss. Yang Fan, Li Yifeng and Ni Jianping were respectively in 3 palace spaces close to the core palace. Their bodies were shrouded in fiery red pure yang energy, and they were all sitting cross-legged, immersed in cultivation. When they were ejected from the core palace, they regained consciousness. Although they did not know what had happened, they knew that Tan Tai Lian must have obtained the legacy of the ruins. And they were all pushed outside. With such rich pure yang energy, they did not want to waste time. Moreover, what surprised them was that after they woke up from their coma, the pure yang energy here did not seem to need them to refine and absorb it. It magically integrated into their bodies at an astonishing speed, and it was much faster than when they were cultivating and absorbing it. And after they started cultivating, the speed became even more astonishing. Their bodies seemed to be burning under the scorching energy, and waves of fishy smell constantly entered their nostrils. This made the 3 of them even more excited, and they used all their energy to absorb and release the majestic pure yang energy. Don't look. Another 6 hours later, they had already controlled their bodies and cultivated for 4 hours. Finally, all the flames that enveloped the 2 of them disappeared. The 2 of them were considered to have completed their cultivation and stopped. The moment they stopped cultivating, Tan Tai Lian and Qin Hao opened their eyes at the same time. Qin Hao was only slightly taken aback. Tan Tai Lian, on the other hand, screamed and covered her breasts with her hands, and said loudly, "Requesting monthly votes. Recommendation votes. Thank you." Chapter 174. First update. 3 more votes, Dark Mountain wants 3 more chapters. 23 more votes, Dark Mountain wants 4 more chapters. 43 more votes, 5 more chapters. Brothers and sisters, vote for me. Let Dark Mountain write with all his might. I want 5 more chapters. I beg for votes. Hiss. With a wave of his hand, Qin Hao released a wisp of smoke from his hand and stood between him and Tan Tai Lian. It blocked Tan Tai Lian's beautiful and alluring naked body. Even so, the image in Qin Hao's mind was still frozen at the moment he opened his eyes, her jade-like skin, her full and round breasts, her 2 tender buds, her slender waist, her flat stomach, and the lush forest area. Tan Tai Lian's panicked and shy expression was also present. Bang, 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 Tan Tai Lian felt as if her heart was about to jump out of her throat. The moment Qin Hao opened his eyes and saw her, she also saw the completely naked Qin Hao. However, in her panic, she did not see clearly. She only saw the white and smooth Qin Hao and screamed to protect herself. At that moment, when she saw Qin Hao release the fog attribute energy, she felt slightly more at ease. But, what should she do if he saw her naked? How could she face him in the future? Even though she saw him, she was the one who was at a disadvantage. It was not the same. Tan Tai Lian was a little confused. Shaking his head fiercely, Qin Hao instantly cut off the thoughts in his mind and said, "Don't think too much. I didn't see anything. When I stopped, the little bird interfered with my eyes. Hurry up and put on your clothes, or else you'll really see it later, ah. Hearing Chen Hao's words, Tan Tai Lian was so frightened that she quickly took out her clothes from her storage ring. After a series of rustling sounds, the two of them quickly put on their clothes. The smoke dispersed, and Tan Tai Lian's face was red. She did not even dare to look at Chen Hao. Although Chen Hao also felt a little strange, his expression was rather calm, as if nothing had happened. He sensed the boundless and vigorous energy in his body. Second grade Grandmaster, Chen Hao said with a little excitement. In just a few short hours, he, who was immersed in receiving the inheritance, did not feel anything at all. However, at this moment, he had actually directly soared from the 9th rank Martial Emperor level to the 2nd rank Martial Ancestor level. Chen Hao couldn't help being surprised. It had to be known that his abnormal body, as well as the barrier to the fusion of intent and martial arts, caused the amount of energy he needed to advance to the 1st grade to be several times higher than others. This was the main factor that prevented him from advancing. The greatest difficulty for other cultivators, comprehending the mysteries of the barrier, was basically non-existent for him. He had already comprehended how to operate the 5 elements and the yin and yang of heaven and earth. It could be said that before reaching the divine realm, there was no barrier to comprehension. The only thing he needed was energy. Ah! 6th grade Ancestor. I've advanced to 6th grade Ancestor. After a short while, Tan Tai Lian said with shock and joy. Chen Hao frowned slightly. The little bit of excitement in his heart was immediately wiped out by Tan Tai Lian's 6th grade Ancestor level. They had both received the inheritance and cultivated together. However, he had only advanced by 2 grades, while Tan Tai Lian had advanced by 6 grades. What was there to be excited about? Rumble. At this moment, the palace door, which had already lost the restriction, opened with a rumble. Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lian's strong senses immediately caught the aura of Li Yifeng, Yang Fan, and Ni Jian Pain. Chen Hao is here too. Li Yifeng suddenly said with a little surprise. Yang Fan and Ni Jian Pain also looked surprised. In their minds, Tan Tai Lian must have received the inheritance. As for Chen Hao, he should have been sent out of the palace like them. Now, all the restrictions in the palace had disappeared. The pure yang energy was also gone. It was obvious that Tan Tai Lian had successfully received the inheritance. I just came in. Chen Hao looked at the 3 of them. He could clearly feel that the 3 of them had made a breakthrough in their cultivation. Their bodies were emitting vigorous pure yang energy. Not bad. It seems that your cultivation has improved greatly too. Ni Jian Pain was already a 2nd grade martial ancestor when he was in the Xuanwu Empire. When he came out of the Endless Sea, he had already advanced to 3rd grade. However, his current aura was obviously that of a 4th grade. Li Yifeng and Yang Fan had also advanced to 3rd grade martial ancestor. Moreover, although the 3 of them did not receive the inheritance of the phoenix, the vigorous pure yang aura on their bodies showed that they had comprehended the heavenly sun. Moreover, in this special space of the historical remains, the 3 of them had obtained a trace of the phoenix's bloodline. Before reaching a certain level, they had the ability to store boundless pure yang energy. Ha! No matter how much I've improved, I can't compare to you. You should have reached the ancestor level, right? What about Xiaoyan? Li Yifeng asked with a trace of excitement. I didn't improve much. I just went from 9th grade Emperor level to 2nd grade Ancestor level. Chen Hao said with a smile on his face. Damn it. It would have been better if Li Yifeng had not asked. Since he had asked, Chen Hao, who had just been defeated by Tan Tai Lian, naturally had to find balance. Cough cough, Tan. Xiaoyan received the inheritance of the historical remains and reached 6th grade Ancestor level. That's quite impressive. Chen Hao did not care about the feelings of the 3 of them and said again. Tan Tai Lian was also immersed in the surprise of increasing her cultivation level. However, when Chen Hao did not admit that he had also received the inheritance, she frowned slightly but did not say anything. At this moment, when she heard that Qin Hao was going to call her by her name but changed it to Xiaoyan, her frowning eyebrows relaxed a little. Even she did not notice the change in her expression. At the same time, Yang Fan and Ni Jianpain also looked at Tan Tai Lian in shock. 6th grade E ancestor level. Just by receiving an inheritance, she, who was originally the weakest, had become the strongest. However, when they thought about how they had only drunk a mouthful of soup and had advanced by 1 grade, and how their physical bodies had undergone shocking changes, they suddenly realized that it was reasonable for Tan Tai Lian, who had eaten meat, to advance by so much. On the contrary, Qin Hao, who had also drunk the soup, had advanced by 1 grade more than them. It was even more strange that he had advanced by 1 grade. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. 24 figures streaked across the void like meteors and landed among the mountains. We've already gone around half a circle, but we still haven't sensed anything. If we still can't find them, we'd better start the training first. If they're running around randomly, it'll be like looking for a needle in a haystack. It'll take too much time. If we can obtain a supreme grade spirit weapon, what's there to be afraid of? There are countless ancient city remains here, and we have 6 months of training. There'll be plenty of opportunities. It doesn't matter if we delay for a day or 2. These 24 people. Buzz buzz buzz. Just as everyone was arguing around Fan Yin, a buzzing sound suddenly came from between Fan Yin's eyebrows, causing everyone to shut their mouths. Nearby. Fan Yin's eyes suddenly flashed with an excited glow as he spoke in a deep voice. However, he immediately frowned and asked, "Why are there only 3? 3? Whose? There's none from Qin Hao and Tan Tai Lian. Could they have cultivated separately? Let's capture them and ask them first." Fan Yin, quick, lead the way. Yu Wuqing said. Strange. Why can't I feel it? In the palace, Qin Hao and the other 4 did not leave immediately. Due to the sudden appearance of the legacy in the ruins, Qin Hao had yet to decipher the spiritual brand. Originally, Qin Hao wanted to first comprehend the spiritual brand in his body and then help Tan Tai Lian and the other 3 to decipher it. He would keep his own spiritual brand. It was better to let a fat sheep come to him than to find one himself. However, at this moment, his cultivation had clearly improved, but he could not capture the spiritual brand in his body. Just as Qin Hao was puzzled, the treasure-hunting sword spirit suddenly said in Qin Hao's mind, "Someone's coming." After the pure yang energy disappeared, the treasure-hunting sword spirit also released its senses. At this moment, Qin Hao was comprehending, so it was naturally in charge of investigating. Yu Wuqing and the other 4. So fast. Qin Hao was slightly shocked. He opened his eyes immediately and looked at Tan Tai Lian and the other 3 who were sitting cross-legged beside him. You've comprehended it? Tan Tai Lian asked immediately. I can't sense any spiritual brand in my body. It seems that my cultivation is not enough. They're coming. You guys go first. Qin Hao said coldly. Qin Hao, before coming to the pure yang relics, our cultivation was not enough and we would only be a burden to you. But now, I'm confident that I can take down a 5th or 6th grade martial grandmaster. I'll fight with you. Me too. Me too. Li Yifeng and Ni Jianpain said in unison. At this moment, the 3 of them seemed to have regained the confidence they had in Xuanwu Empire. Yang Fan's ordinary face shone with a hint of determination. He restrained his aura to the extreme. Li Yifeng's handsome face shone with a hint of coldness. He looked at Qin Hao with a hint of indomitable will. On the other hand, Ni Jianpain was as calm as a mountain. His eyes were sharp and burning. I'm already a 6th grade emperor intent. Tan Tai Lian's majestic and terrifying spiritual aura spread out. Her otherworldly little face seemed to have regained the appearance of when she had violently killed her opponents. Looking at the expressions of the 4 people, Qin Hao frowned slightly. After hesitating for a moment, he said, "All right. They have more people. We can't fight them head-on. Follow me first." Boom. After saying that, Chen Hao flew into the sky, broke through the top floor of the palace, and flew into the void. Whoosh 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 whoosh. At the same time, Tan Tai Lien and the other three quickly followed and flew into the depths of the relics. Trying to run. When Fan Yin, who was still a few hundred miles away, sensed the tracking talisman moving quickly, he immediately frowned and said, "Speed up. They're flying into the depths of the relics. Did they discover us? Impossible. Those three are only lower-grade martial great ancestors. How could they discover us? They should be just leaving. Chase them, hurry up." Whoosh. The 7th grade Emperor intent Fan Yin's speed suddenly increased again. Among the 24 people, other than Fan Yin, there were 5 7th grade martial great ancestors, including Yu Wuqing. One of the 7th grade martial great ancestors had an arrogant expression. He flew in the air as if he was taking a stroll. He looked extremely relaxed. His figure flashed and he arrived beside Fan Yin. He said, "Too slow. There are only 3 lower-grade martial great ancestors. Fan Yin, I'll bring you over first. You can just follow behind. P.S. I wish all the brothers and sisters who support AOT on a happy Chinese Valentine's Day. Begging for monthly votes. Begging for more." Chapter 175. Today's monthly votes aren't good enough. Wu Shan was already forcing himself to be spirited, but when he saw the monthly votes, he became weak. What a fast speed. Chen Hao, who had advanced to 2nd stage martial great master, had a powerful soul and his range of perception had increased by several times. When Fan Yin was brought closer by the fast cultivator, Chen Hao frowned slightly. "They've caught up?" Li Feng asked. "Yes. However, it's not a big team. There are only 2 people who are very fast. That's strange, they want to deal with me with just these 2 people. Could it be?" Chen Hao frowned slightly. Then, his eyes lit up and he thought to himself, "The spiritual brand on my body must have disappeared when I received the inheritance. The will of the inheritance that Phoenix and Phoenix left behind is the Nirvana flame. When it refined Tan Tai Lien and my body, it should have burned away all the abnormalities. The spiritual brand on Tan Tai Lien's body must have disappeared as well. Otherwise, she would have been able to sense it since she's already a 6th stage martial great master and her spiritual power is extremely strong." Interesting. The corners of Chen Hao's mouth suddenly curled into an evil smile as he flew at high speed. "What's wrong?" Tan Tai Lien was confused. "You're a martial great master and my spiritual power is also strong. Our spiritual brands should have been wiped away when we advanced. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for me not to sense it. Ha, they should be chasing after Yang Fan and the other 2. They didn't notice Xiao Yan and me, otherwise, they wouldn't have dared to chase after us first. Isn't this interesting? Let's go, we'll speed up. It'll be easy once we enter any ancient city ruins." Whoosh! A gust of wind blew past and Chen Hao instantly turned into a gust of wind. At the same time, Tan Tai Lien and the other 3 suddenly realized that the air in front of them had lost its original resistance as they flew at high speed. Instantly, their speed soared again. Yang Fan, who had already comprehended half of the wind attribute, was like a fish in water. In addition, the 5 of them now contained a vast amount of pure yang energy in their bodies, causing their speed to far surpass their cultivation base. Although they were only a few hundred miles apart, if they wanted to catch up, it would definitely not be done in a short period of time. So fast. Fan Yin frowned slightly. Of course. I was only half a step away from comprehending the true essence of the space attribute. Other than Leng Yihan, no one below 9th grade martial grandmaster is faster than me. Hearing Fan Yin's words, the young man immediately said with a trace of pride. His eyes could not help but glance at Fan Yin's chest. Through the collar, the towering snow-white cleavage was clearly visible, causing the young man to swallow his saliva uncontrollably. Especially at this moment, he was still holding Fan Yin's soft little hand. What I'm saying is, they're so fast. What? Are they fast? Fan Yin's words made the proud young man frown. He suddenly summoned his energy and accelerated again. Bang! Rumble. From afar, the sound of a huge energy explosion reached the ears of Chen Hao and the others. As they quickly approached, a huge city that stretched as far as the eye could see appeared in front of Chen Hao's group. Just by looking at the scale of this city, it was obviously larger than the Pure Sun ancient city. At this moment, the first restriction gate of the city had been blasted open. Many cultivators were destroying the restriction inside. It's here. Get down. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Chen Hao's group immediately landed in the city as fast as lightning. They've stopped flying. They should have entered the ancient city ruins. I told you, they shouldn't have discovered us. Fan Yin said with a smile when she sensed that the tracking seal had slowed down abruptly and was not moving forward at all. Indeed, after flying for a few hundred miles, a huge ancient city appeared in front of them. It's in this palace. Fan Yin said as she pointed to a palace below them. Let me do it. You just wait outside. The young man smiled and said. Fan Yin nodded. With the young man's cultivation, it would not be a problem for him to capture 3 lower-grade martial grandmasters alive. He could do it in minutes. However, 5 minutes had passed and the young man still had not come out. In the palace, she could sense that the 3 tracking talismans were just moving around casually. This made Fan Yin frown slightly. Her valiant spiritual tentacles immediately spread out and merged into the palace. At this moment, even without the tracking talisman, she could sense the aura of Yang Fan and the other 2. However, what surprised her was that she could not capture the young man's aura. What's going on? Fan Yin was shocked. Could it be that he's still hiding his aura to deal with 3 lower-grade martial grandmasters? No, he's only powerful because he has comprehended the essence of the space attribute. Even if he's hiding his aura, I should still be able to sense it. Hiss. At this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air suddenly came from the entrance of the palace. In an instant, something that looked like a watermelon flew quickly toward Fan Yin. You're courting death. Fan Yin shouted and a majestic spiritual power shone from between her eyebrows. However, when she saw clearly what was flying toward her, her eyes widened in shock and she almost screamed. A head. The young man's head. What made Fan Yin's hair stand on end was that the young man's expression had a trace of arrogance and haughtiness. It was obvious that when he died, he did not know that he was in danger. He was a 7th-grade martial grandmaster and was the fastest and most powerful among them. However, he had killed them silently. Ah! At this moment, Fan Yin suddenly screamed in horror. Her violent spiritual power suddenly surged out of her body and condensed into rays of sword light that attacked her surroundings. Boom boom boom. 30 feet behind Fan Yin, the rays of terrifying spiritual power sword light made a huge explosion sound. Fan Yin did not even turn her head. With a swoosh, she instantly moved 100 feet away. Her whole body was covered in cold sweat and her spiritual power tendrils protected her body as she looked in the direction of the explosion. Her intuition, which was on the verge of death, saved her life. An extraordinarily handsome figure appeared in front of her eyes. You? How is that possible? If I were you, when I escaped with my life, the first thing I would do would be to run away and not be surprised. The perception of a 7th-grade martial grandmaster is indeed not bad. Xiaoyan, why don't I let you try? Chen Hao smiled and stood in the air as he spoke. Okay. Following Tan Tailian's voice, her beautiful figure also strangely appeared beside Chen Hao. At the same time, a pure, vigorous and boundless spiritual power suddenly spread out. With a hiss, Tan Tailian actually charged towards Fan Yin violently. Tan Tailian, who was a 6th-grade martial grandmaster and had the inheritance of Phoenix, was able to hide her spiritual power from Fan Yin's perception under the cover of Chen Hao. This was enough to show that she had the ability to fight against Fan Yin. Chen Hao did not need to participate in a battle that did not pose any threat. It was better to let Tan Tailian train. Chen Hao, who was a second-grade martial grandmaster, currently had an unimaginably strong fusion of energy. Chen Hao had absolute confidence that he could fight against a 9th-grade martial grandmaster. That 7th-grade martial grandmaster youth, under his sneak attack, was no different from killing a chicken. How is that possible? How is that possible? You want to kill me? Dream on. Fan Yin said in fear. He frantically took out an almost transparent spiritual artifact short sword. Instantly, his body became streaks of sword light. At the same time, he quickly retreated. He was obviously scared out of his wits and did not dare to continue fighting. He only wanted to block Tan Tailian's attack and take the opportunity to escape. However, Chen Hao was like a ghost and instantly blocked his escape route. Yang Fan, Li Feng and Ni Jianping, the 3 targets, also walked out of the palace. However, they did not approach and instead watched the show from afar. Their strength was not enough to fight against a 7th-grade martial grandmaster. One did not dare to continue fighting, one was filled with fighting spirit and confidence, and one could appear at any time to block the way. Tan Tailian, who was only a 6th-grade martial grandmaster, actually managed to suppress her opponent in a short half a minute. No matter if it was in terms of adaptability or spiritual power, she surpassed the 7th-grade martial grandmaster Fan Yin. Moreover, Tan Tailian's spiritual power contained a majestic and terrifying pure yang energy. At first, Tan Tailian was not familiar with the use of this energy. However, after a few short exchanges, she was like a fish in water and her power became more and more violent. She actually gave up the advantage of a martial grandmaster's long-range attack and kept approaching Fan Yin. She merged her spiritual power and pure yang energy into her sword and fought in close combat. Boom! Boom! Terrifying spiritual power destroyed a large part of the palace that had lost its restrictions as the two of them fought. The huge commotion attracted the attention of a few people who were training in the city. Among them, a few experts came to watch the show. As for those with low cultivation, they did not dare to come over and continued to break through the restrictions. Don't kill me. My brother is an inner disciple of the sword faction, Fan Fang. If you kill me, you will die a horrible death. Fan Yin saw that there was no hope of escaping and that the main group would not be able to arrive in a short period of time. As he defended against Tan Tailian's attacks, he said loudly, "My soul brand has the seal of life and death that my brother condensed. Even if you kill Yu Wuqing and the rest, you can forget about hiding it from my brother." Sword faction. Chen Hao said with a slight frown. That's right. A rank 6 sect, the sword faction. The corners of Chen Hao's mouth curled up slightly, and he spoke with a trace of arrogance. What a high-level sect. Unfortunately, I'm not afraid of threats. However, you are senior brother Fan Fang's younger sister, Fan Yin? Right at this moment, one of the spectating experts suddenly asked. As he spoke, his body flashed and he rushed toward Tan Tailian and Fan Yin. He shouted, "Stop!" With a casual wave of his hand, a terrifying river of yuan power surged between Tan Tailian and Fan Yin with a boom, directly forcing the two of them to retreat. Whoosh! Chen Hao instantly flew to Tan Tailian's side and stood in front of Tan Tailian. His expression was cold as he stared at the expert who had interfered with the fight. Even he did not expect such a sudden unforeseen event. Furthermore, that casual attack earlier was extremely powerful. It was obvious that he was a rank 8 or even rank 9 martial emperor. More importantly, Chen Hao could clearly sense that the man's body contained the aura of the 5 elements and the yin and yang of heaven and earth. As if she had found her savior, Fan Yin moved to the side of the expert with lightning speed and asked, "Senior brother, do you know my brother?" Who doesn't know senior brother Fan Fang? Before we disciples of the sword faction came here to train, senior brother Fan Fang had specially instructed us to take care of you. Don't worry, with senior brother here, no one will be able to harm you. That expert looked at Fan Yin's voluptuous figure and said arrogantly. After he finished speaking, he looked at Qin Hao and Tan Tai Lien and said, "If you don't want to die, scram. If it wasn't for the sex restrictions, I wouldn't mind killing you too for the sake of my younger sister Fan Yin." Second update, seeking monthly votes. Chapter 176. First update. Begging for monthly votes. More than 30 monthly votes yesterday, less than 40, but Wushan will explode in the fourth update. Can today's monthly votes be more intense? Please everyone, 20 monthly votes plus 1 chapter, Wushan wants 5, 6, 7 chapters. Come on, brothers and sisters, cast your votes and let Wushan explode. What? You don't agree? Seeing Qin Hao's cold eyes, the sect disciple standing with his hands behind his back narrowed his eyes and said disdainfully. Tan Tai Lien gently pulled Qin Hao's arm behind Qin Hao. Senior, don't let them go. He has a 5 elements combination spiritual weapon. Fan Yin could feel the strength of the young man beside her. She, who had just begged for mercy, was now looking at Qin Hao fiercely and sending a message to the sect disciple beside her. What? A 5 elements combination spiritual weapon? The sect disciple was slightly surprised. He looked at Qin Hao with eyes full of greed. Then the aura around him surged crazily. At the same time, he said indifferently, "Hand it over and scram. Otherwise, don't blame me for being too strong and merciless." Qin Hao's expression did not change. He waved Tan Tai Lien away and stared at the sect master in front of him. He said, "8th grade martial grandmaster or 9th grade martial grandmaster? Let's talk nicely. Maybe I'll let it go for the sake of the Flying Sword sect. Unfortunately, you're full of nonsense and greedy. Very good. I'd like to see how strong you are. You do have some ability, but you're only a lower grade martial grandmaster. You don't know how high the sky is. I'm too strong, so I'll fulfill your wish. In your next life, remember to take a step back and you'll be able to see the sky." When Tai Zigong heard Qin Hao's words, he smiled. His expression was calm. He waved his hand and sent Fan Yin away. Layers of terrifying vortexes rippled from his back. In the blink of an eye, 2 brilliant energy wings appeared on his shoulders. Space-ripping wings. Powerful. The Skysplitter wings was the strongest movement technique in the postnatal realm of the Sword Control sect, and only disciples that had comprehended the circulation of the 5 elements and the yin and yang of heaven and earth were able to cultivate it. By relying on these 2 types of auras, one was able to produce a trace of energy that could link up with space, and its speed was shocking to the extreme. It's on par with our Startling Cloud Pavilion's Startling Swan technique. A disciple of the Startling Cloud Pavilion, a 6th grade sect, said to the person beside him. That's right. That disciple on the 100 Empire ranking is truly a newborn calf. No matter how talented he is, Tai Zigong is only a rank 8 martial ancestor. Now that he has mastered the space-ripping wings, even if the 2 of us join forces, I'm afraid we won't be a match for him. Moreover, Tai Zigong is a disciple of the rank 6 sect, the sword riding school. That brat is truly seeking his own death, something's not right. Don't forget that when we came out to train, the sect told us not to clash with the disciples on the 100 Empire ranking as much as possible. After all, they might join our sect. But this Tai Zigong was clearly going to let them go, yet he wanted them to hand over something, and now he's directly using the void-shattering wings. Clearly, this thing made Tai Zigong a little excited. Could it be some precious treasure? Rings of energy of the 5 elements circulated and emitted a misty 7-colored radiance. Before he even made his move, his entire aura was already extremely valiant. A terrifying pressure enveloped an area of several hundred meters. Tan Tai Lien and the other 3, as well as many spectating experts, all retreated one after another. Tai Zigong's valiant aura caused Fan Yin's face to be filled with a hint of ruthlessness and excitement. Even she had never imagined that she would be so lucky to encounter a disciple of the sword riding school when she was on the verge of death. Now, she was almost certain that not only would she be able to kill Chen Hao and the others, she would also be able to obtain a portion of the top-grade combination spirit artifact. Given Tai Zigong's respectful tone towards her brother, he definitely wouldn't take it all for himself. Then, he wouldn't have to share it with Yu Wuqing and the others. Just as the aura on Tai Zigong's body surged towards Chen Hao like a mountain flood, Chen Hao's expression was solemn. Waves of incomparably fierce battle intent exploded from his body. Without waiting for Tai Zigong to make his move, he abruptly took a step forward. Clang! 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 Dazzling five-colored sword light, like lightning in the clear sky, whizzed out. It contained boundless energy of the five elements and pure yang. With a terrifying aura that could destroy the heavens and the earth, it took the lead to attack Tai Zigong. Hiss! 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 Along with the terrifying five-elemental sword light, smaller sword rays filled the surroundings of the five-elemental sword light. Like small snakes, they covered the sky and covered the earth. The moment Chen Hao made his move, he took out the five-elemental spiritual sword. The valiant strength of a ninth-grade martial ancestor caused Chen Hao to feel immense pressure. At the same time, he was also completely excited. He wanted to have a head-on battle to see the extent of his strength. Not to mention that Tai Zigong was an 8th-grade martial ancestor. Even if it was a 9th-grade martial ancestor, Chen Hao would still do the same. You have some skills. But the difference is still too great. Humph. Tai Zigong snorted disdainfully. The wings on his shoulders suddenly flapped violently. Whoosh, an incomparably fierce wind suddenly rose. The void seemed to be torn apart by the wind. In the ear-piercing sound, the space around Tai Zigong strangely flashed with strange fluctuations. It was like the distortion of space when the transmission formation appeared. It actually easily dissolved Chen Hao's powerful attack into nothingness. Whoosh! Under the wings that contained the energy of the five elements and the yin and yang of heaven and earth, Tai Zigong's body rotated at a high speed. The moment he broke Chen Hao's attack, his wings suddenly flapped and a sword appeared in his hand. With a hiss, it seemed to tear apart the void. With a terrifying speed, he attacked Chen Hao. Chen Hao's face changed color in horror. Tai Zigong's fighting talent was far beyond Chen Hao's imagination. Not only did he operate the five elements and comprehend the yin and yang of heaven and earth, but he also relied on the energy of these two realms to have a trace of the ability that only the martial god could have. Although it was only a little bit of aura, it was like condensing a black hole and easily dissolved all of Chen Hao's attacks. Hiss! A strand of peerlessly swift and fierce sword chi approached within 30 meters of Chen Hao in the blink of an eye. Boom! Ding! Ding! First, there was the terrifying sound of energy colliding. Then, Chen Hao and Tai Zigong's figures actually advanced instead of retreating. Under the raging energy that filled the sky, they directly engaged in close combat. The crisp and ear-piercing sound of metal clashing, accompanied by the sword light that filled the sky, caused everything around the two of them to suddenly explode with a rumble. At this moment, the five elements spiritual swords had been combined into one. They were held in Chen Hao's hand, shining with bright light. In just a moment, they had exchanged many blows. Chen Hao's figure twisted and turned, high and low. He had been fighting with Tai Zigong in close combat, flying up and down. Sometimes he was above the palace, and sometimes he was flying in the air. This caused the onlookers to open their eyes wide. It should be known that in this battle, except for Tan Tai Lian and the other three, everyone thought that the outcome would be determined in one move. However, at this moment, Chen Hao, who was only a lower-grade martial grandmaster, was completely suppressed by Tai Zigong's violent, sharp, and terrifying attacks. However, he was not blown away or defeated by Tai Zigong's powerful energy. Instead, he advanced step by step and did not panic at all. Tai Zigong was also shocked. The others were only watching from afar. As he was in the battle, he felt it more deeply. Obviously, he had the absolute advantage in terms of power and had the ability to defeat his opponent in one move. However, his opponent had used the mystery of power to the extreme, causing his energy to feel as if it was attacking cotton. He had a feeling that he could not do his best. It seemed that he had the upper hand, but he felt that he was completely restrained by his opponent. Especially after a few moves, his opponent seemed to have predicted the landing point of his attack. Swoosh! Swoosh! Just as Chen Hao and Tai Zhigang were fighting, more than 20 figures flew over from afar. They had a look of surprise on their faces and landed beside Fan Yin. Fan Yin, what's going on? Where's Mo Yujie? Yu Wuqing stared in shock at Chen Hao, who was fighting with an expert in the void, and asked. The other youths also had a look of intense shock on their faces. At this moment, even a pig could see how powerful Chen Hao was. Hearing Yu Wuqing's words, everyone looked at Fan Yin, whose hair was messy but whose expression was complicated. At this moment, Fan Yin's expression was both shocked and gloating. Mo Yujie has been killed by Chen Hao. If it weren't for senior brother Tai Zhigang, I would have died in Chen Hao's hands. Senior brother Tai Zhigang is my brother's junior brother, a disciple of the 6th grade sword clan. Yu Wuqing, you almost got all of us killed. Humph. I've already told senior brother Tai Zhigang about the supreme grade spirit weapon. You should know what to do. This. Yu Wuqing's expression changed. What are you waiting for? Kill that bitch Tan Tai Lian and the other 3. Fan Yin looked at Tan Tai Lian in the distance with resentment and said to Yu Wuqing and the rest. It was one thing for Tan Tai Lian to be prettier than her, but a 6th stage Yizong was actually more powerful than her and had almost killed her. This was something she could not tolerate. Alright. Seeing the current situation, these disciples knew that there was no way out. Indeed, if Tai Zhigang had not appeared, they would not have been able to kill Chen Hao with the strength that he had displayed. On the contrary, they would have been killed by Chen Hao one by one. Swoosh! 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 Yu Wuqing took the lead, bypassing Chen Hao and Tai Zhigang's battle range, and rushed toward Tan Tai Lian and the other 3 in the distance. The expressions of Tan Tai Lian and the other 3 changed drastically when the 20 over disciples appeared. The 4 of them looked at each other and their expressions were extremely grave. Without Chen Hao, how could the 4 of them withstand so many experts from the other side? Escape? Chen Hao was still fighting, and the outcome was unknown. Fight? How long could they last? However, it seemed that they could only fight. Hiss. Yang Fan's ordinary face immediately withdrew all his aura. In an instant, it was as if he had turned into a breeze. At the same time, he transmitted his voice to Tan Tai Lian and the other 2, saying, I'll launch a sneak attack. Hold on, as long as Chen Hao can win, we still have a chance to live. Tan Tai Lian, if you can escape, then escape. Your strength is no weaker than any of them. Tan Tai Lian frowned slightly, but she shook her head. A majestic and terrifying mental energy spread out at this moment. In an instant, a scorching hot energy bloomed from between her eyebrows with a boom. Although Chen Hao's mind was completely immersed in the battle, it was impossible for him not to notice the arrival of more than 20 people. The expression on his face became even more solemn. However, at this moment, he was unable to free himself. The 8th grade martial grandmaster Tai Zhigang's talent and battle strength were absolutely terrifying. It was impossible for him to distract Chen Hao. Otherwise, he would be defeated by the opponent's absolute strength in one move. Originally, Chen Hao was not in a hurry. Such a stressful battle was undoubtedly the best training for him. However, at this moment, boom! When a bright red light shone from Tan Tai Lian's forehead and her entire body seemed to be enveloped in flames, Chen Hao's forehead also exploded. Requesting monthly votes, recommendation votes. Many thanks. Luo Shi's true love Dang Ting brothers Piao Hong has been promoted to the 2nd alliance of Ao Tian. Thank you. There are 3 more updates today. Brothers with monthly votes, please vote for Wu Shan. Force Wu Shan to go all out. Chapter 177. Second update. Begging for votes. Begging for an explosion. Boom. Chen Hao, who was in close combat with Tai Zigong, suddenly burst into raging flames. With a swing of his sword, a roaring fire dragon was formed, forcing the powerful Tai Zigong to retreat 100 zhang. Tai Zigong resisted the surging energy in his body, his eyes filled with extreme shock. Whoosh! Chen Hao did not chase after Tai Zigong. Instead, he rushed to Tan Tai Lian's side at a terrifying speed. Jie Ga, two strange cries suddenly burst out from Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lian's bodies. At the same time, the two figures disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. Rumble. The majestic flames immediately condensed into a flying bird that was dozens of zhang long, completely formed by flames. A destructive aura instantly enveloped a radius of a few hundred zhang. All of you, die. Chen Hao's cold voice suddenly sounded like the king of hell. The giant bird suddenly opened its mouth and shot out terrifying fire arrows. In an instant, there were dozens of them, whistling as they rushed toward the 20 over disciples who were besieging Yang Fan, Li Yifeng, and Ni Jian Pain. Due to the sudden change of events, the 20 disciples did not even have time to react before they were engulfed by the flames. Following a series of explosions, cries of agony could be heard. It was unknown how many disciples were devoured by the terrifying flames in just a single move. Several 7th-grade martial grandmaster experts were scared out of their wits. They used all their strength and frantically scattered in all directions. However, at this moment, from the giant bird's mouth that Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lian had condensed, more terrifying fire dragons suddenly shot out. Each fire dragon contained an extremely sharp sword light. Under the control of the two people's combined energy, they became scythes that reaped lives. 4 7th-grade martial grandmasters, including Yu Wuqing, were turned into dust amidst their terrified screams. Phoenix Inheritance. Let's go. The shocked Tai Zigong suddenly waved his hand and grabbed the dumbfounded Fan Yin. The wings on his back flapped hundreds of times in an instant. With a whoosh, they fled into the distance like lightning. Trying to run. Chen Hao let out a roar. Like a flaming phoenix, he flapped his huge wings, which were hundreds of feet long. With a hiss, he chased after Tai Zigong and Fan Yin at an even more terrifying speed. Tai Zigong felt the terrifying hot aura behind him getting closer and closer, and the expression on his face became extremely shocked. He frowned and finally threw Fan Yin behind him. At the same time, he quickly took out a crystal-clear pill that emitted a majestic power and stuffed it into his mouth. Ah! Senior brother, Fan Yin screamed in terror, her beautiful face becoming incomparably pale. She frantically waved her claws, wanting to grab Tai Zigong, but at this moment, it was futile. Tai Zigong had clearly abandoned her and left. Husband and wife were birds of the same fate. When disaster struck, they would fly separately. Moreover, Tai Zigong had nothing to do with her. In a life-and-death situation, he could even protect himself. Why would he care about her? Frightened, Fan Yin activated all her mental strength, but it was still futile. The endless sea of fire instantly drowned her. She only heard Chen Hao's cold words, "Serves you right." Her head shook and she lost consciousness, swoosh. After a brief obstruction, Tai Zigong, who swallowed the pill and abandoned the package, suddenly seemed to tear the space apart. In a flash, he was thousands of feet away. Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lian, who were together, could not catch up even if they wanted to. The power of the Phoenix's nirvana was a power that completely exceeded their realm. The time that it could last was very short. Therefore, even though Chen Hao knew that Tai Zigong's escape was a great hidden danger, there was nothing he could do. In the world of cultivation, among the endless mountains, a figure sat cross-legged on the top of a mountain, surrounded by clouds and mist. He, who was immersed in cultivation, suddenly heard an explosion in his mind, causing him to open his eyes in horror. Little Yin. Something happened to Little Yin. Who is it? Who is it? The figure's face instantly twisted. In an instant, a white jade token flashed from between his eyebrows and floated in front of him. This white token was the seal of life and death that Fanine had mentioned. At the same time, the figure pinched a sword gesture. With a swoosh, a vigorous energy was poured into the jade token. Immediately, the jade token emitted rays of milky white light, and a mirror image condensed into a burning flame. A vague picture appeared in the flame. It was Qin Hao, Tan Tai Lian, and Fanine, who was struggling in fear. Then, Qin Hao smashed Fanine's head with a punch. "Sister," the figure's expression was crazily twisted. He closed his eyes tightly and trembled violently. He clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. "I want you to die. I want you to die. Sister." The roar was like rolling thunder, dispersing the auspicious clouds around him. Fan Fong, yes, this figure was Fanine's brother, Fan Fong. Fanine was his most beloved sister, who was only 2 years older than him. He, Fan Fong, and his sister Fanine were all top geniuses. 2 years ago, he entered the 100 Empire ranking and obtained the proud 35th place, entering the 6th rank sect, the sword-controlling sect. This was not what he was most proud of. What he was most proud of was that his cultivation talent was truly displayed after he entered the sword-controlling sect. In just 2 years, he broke through the martial sage and martial god realms from the 7th grade martial grandmaster realm and entered the legendary golden elixir realm. He broke the record of the sword-controlling sect's 100 Empire ranking disciples and became an inner disciple in the shortest time. He also became the focus of the sword-controlling sect. His fame in the sword-controlling sect was not inferior to that of the core disciples. However, Fanine was different from him. She was an intentional person. Although they were brother and sister, they were not related by blood. In addition, they were about the same age and had been childhood sweethearts. Although they did not cross the line, their relationship had long surpassed that of brother and sister. He had long been prepared. He had made an agreement with the outer sect elder in charge of selecting disciples on the 100 Empire ranking that no matter what his sister did, she would be accepted into the sword-controlling sect. When Fanine arrived, the brother and sister would be reunited. More importantly, when Fanine truly matured, she would become his Tao companion. One for martial arts, one for intent. She would be the most perfect Tao companion. Moreover, she would be his most trusted Tao companion. She would be someone who could truly go through life and death with him. But now, everything was ruined. It was ruined by the hands of that youth. Hatred, overflowing hatred, almost caused him to fall into madness and lose his Tao heart. Among the spectating experts, a disciple of the startling cloud pavilion stared at Qin Hao and Tan Tai Lian's figures that were slowly descending. Their bodies were still flickering with the radiance of flames as he muttered with an astonished expression, "The Phoenix's inheritance." "The legend is actually true." "What legend?" another disciple asked. 10,000 years ago, the godly martial empire was in existence that could contend against the powerful sects of the cultivation world. Do you know the main reason? It was the inheritance of the divine beasts. Azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, black tortoise, Qilin, phoenix. Among them, there were 2 people who possessed the phoenix's inheritance, a man and a woman. There were a total of 7 people, and these 7 people jointly controlled the godly martial empire. If they hadn't shed all pretenses of cordiality and started killing each other for the sake of the throne, the godly martial empire wouldn't have declined. That disciple slowly said, "Legend has it that the 7 of them fought in a chaotic battle. Among them, the phoenix and the phoenix were one body, while the other 5 were one body and didn't give way to each other. In the end, all of them died, causing the godly martial empire to decline. However, their inheritances were all left behind in the godly martial empire. This kind of divine beast inheritance has its own consciousness and ability. After the 7 of them died in battle, they sealed the godly martial empire together and turned it into a ruin. They also returned to their original state, waiting for the person who is qualified to obtain the inheritance to appear. No way. You mean that in this godly martial ruins, there's the phoenix's inheritance and the inheritance of the 5 divine beasts? That's right. It was originally just a legend, and even our cultivation world couldn't verify it. Ever since this godly martial ruins was discovered, batches of disciples came to train. Many of them were able to obtain the inheritance of the ruins, but none of them were able to obtain the inheritance of the divine beasts. Therefore, very few people mentioned it. I only found out about it when I heard my ancestor casually mentioned it before I started training. Alright, let's go. The phoenix's inheritance has already appeared. Perhaps there are other divine beasts' inheritances in the area where the godly martial ruins opened this time. After all, they all died in the great battle back then, so it's very likely that they're all in this area. We have to hurry up. If we can obtain the inheritance, there won't be a problem for us to be promoted to inner court disciples. Even becoming a core disciple is only a matter of time. Let's go. Whoosh whoosh. After the two of them finished speaking, they turned into streams of light and flew towards the depths of the ruins with excited and hopeful expressions. Yang Fan, Li Feng, and Ni Jianping looked at Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lian, who had returned to their side together, in shock. Tan Tai Lian blushed. Chen Hao, on the other hand, looked calm as he said, I only obtained a part of the inheritance. I didn't expect that after joining forces with little Lian, the power would be so great. Unfortunately, the duration is too short. Otherwise, even Tai Zigong would have been left behind. Why are you standing there like idiots? After the battle, the first thing to do is to collect the spoils of war. Collect the spoils of war. The three of them were stunned. Chen Hao smiled and waved his hand in the air. Immediately, the storage rings and intact spirit swords scattered on the ground flew into his hands. He said, the spoils should be good. They went for wool and came home shorn. Let's go. Let's get out of here first. There's basically no threat now. The ruins here obviously have endless benefits for cultivation. Our cultivation is still too weak, so the key is to raise our realm. Let's go. Awoo. Awoo. Just as Chen Hao finished speaking, the roars of demonic beasts suddenly came from outside the ancient city. The billowing aura of demonic beasts instantly violently filled the space between heaven and earth. The sky darkened. A tide of demonic beasts that lurked in the day and came out at night appeared out of thin air. Why are there so many? Li Feng was surprised. Chen Hao and the others also frowned slightly. After they entered the ruins, although they sensed the aura of demonic beasts, they had never encountered them. They thought that there was an error in the information transmitted by the token, or there was a problem with the range they entered. But at this moment, the billowing aura of demonic beasts clearly told them that danger was coming. Chen Hao, quickly break the restriction and enter the palace. Everything will be fine. The more palaces you destroy, the more demonic beasts there will be. Last time in the Pure Yang Palace, because you didn't destroy a restriction, no demonic beasts appeared. At this moment, Phoenix's weak and tender voice sounded in Chen Hao's mind. Seeking monthly votes. Recommendation votes. Thank you, I will update 4 chapters today. Today's monthly votes are only 11. Brothers and sisters, do you want Wushan to rest and only update 2 chapters tomorrow? Vote for me if you have monthly votes. Please. Chapter 178. Third update, begging for monthly votes. Wushan continues to write the 4th update. Forcefully writing with low efficiency. Brothers and sisters who still have monthly votes, please vote for Wushan. I need it, I really need it. I only have 18 votes now, and I've been left far behind by the 3rd place. I've already voted 4 or 5 times. No matter how passionate I am, it's all gone, kill our way out. Hearing Little Bird's voice, Chen Hao suddenly understood what was going on. He frowned slightly for a moment, but he did not listen to Little Bird's suggestion. Instead, he said coldly to Tan Tai Lian and the others. The weak Tan-Tai Lien looked at Chen Hao in surprise. Obviously, she had also heard the news from Phoenix. However, Chen Hao was obviously very good at breaking formations. Why didn't he do that? Without waiting for Tan-Tai Lien to ask, Chen Hao took the lead and flew into the air. Yang Fan, Li Yifeng, and Ni Jianping also took a deep breath and followed. Seeing this, Tan-Tai Lien had no choice but to muster up her remaining mental strength and follow him. She really did not understand how Chen Hao, who had also gone through a big battle, could still be so lively. In the face of countless flying monstrous beasts, Chen Hao and the others approached the core of the ancient ruins while crazily killing monstrous beasts. Most of these monstrous beasts had the strength of a rank 6 to rank 7 martial grandmaster. Occasionally, a rank 8 or even a rank 9 martial grandmaster would appear. Chen Hao was able to meet the strong ones immediately. When the 4 of them were in real danger, he was able to save them in time. However, under normal circumstances, even if they were seriously injured, Chen Hao would not care. The cruel training had finally officially begun for Tan-Tai Lien, Yang Fan, and the others. 6 months passed in a flash. Originally, they thought that Tai Zigong, who had escaped, would rope in the disciples of the sect and cause trouble. However, for 6 months, they did not meet him again. Other than entering the ancient ruins to cultivate, the 5 of them were crazily killing monstrous beasts. Everyone's strength had increased tremendously. Yang Fan and Li Yifeng both caught up to Ni Jianping. The 3 of them had all increased their cultivation to rank 6 martial ancestor realm. Especially Yang Fan, who had finally comprehended the true essence of the wind attribute in the cruel battle. His sword was extremely terrifying. As for Tan-Tai Lien, in this unimaginably cruel training and battle, in addition to the inheritance of the Phoenix, she had risen from the 6th grade of Yizong to the 8th grade of Yizong. Her battle prowess was far above Yang Fan and the other 2. Even against the top experts on the imperial rankings, he could stand up to them. But compared to Chen Hao, the 4 of them had the urge to find a piece of tofu and kill themselves. 9th grade Grandmaster. Yes, he was a 9th grade Grandmaster. Even Chen Hao didn't expect the 5 of them to improve at such a speed. He especially didn't expect himself to be so fast. This was related to the fact that he had broken the forbidden formation and completely obtained the inheritance of the ruins. Coupled with the crazy hunting of demonic beasts and battles, the speed at which Tan-Tai Lien and the others improved far surpassed that of the other disciples. However, the main reason why Chen Hao could advance so quickly was because of the energy in his body. It had completely turned into a liquid state. What did this mean? It meant that for the same size of Dantian, after storing liquid energy, the energy would be hundreds or thousands of times more powerful. He didn't have any realm barriers. With sufficient energy, his breakthrough was like a hot knife through butter. It took him less than 6 months to advance from the 2nd grade to the 9th grade of Zong. On average, he broke through more than 1 grade per month. When the energy in his Dantian was completely refined into a liquid state, he finally broke through to the 9th grade of Zong. 6 months of experience had finally come to an end. Unfortunately, although they had been reminded by the Phoenix, the 5 of them still didn't find the so-called inheritance of the 5 divine beasts. Amidst the pillars of light that shot up into the sky, the cultivators scattered all over the relic disappeared one after another. When Chen Hao and the other 4 walked out of a huge transmission formation at the same time, except for Chen Hao, the faces of Tan-Tai Lien and the other 3 were filled with excitement. 6 months had been too cruel for them. No matter what, they had never imagined that training with Chen Hao would allow them to reach such a terrifying level. Of course, they had never imagined that they would be able to improve to such an extent. At this moment, the relaxed feeling was very fulfilling. They had worked hard and risked their lives. Now, they had obtained the results they deserved. Chen Hao's expression was calm. His handsome face was even more mature. He didn't deliberately restrain his aura, nor did he deliberately release it. However, at this moment, anyone who saw him for the first time could feel an incomparably powerful aura. Every move, even a look, seemed to contain the power to topple mountains and overturn seas. Ah, we're finally out. Phew, I'm really looking forward to the real 100 Empire ranking competition. Figures, alone and in groups, rushed out of the transmission formation one after another. Their expressions were filled with excitement. Obviously, including the experience in the endless sea, a full 9 months of hard work had brought about astonishing improvements. However, after everyone walked out of the transmission formation and sighed, they looked at the huge martial arts practice field outside the transmission formation's exit. Directly above the rostrum of the martial arts practice field, there was a huge black pagoda monument standing tall. At this moment, the black pagoda monument was shining with a bright golden light. The names of all the cultivators were constantly flashing on it. Some were rising, some were falling, and some were not moving at all. Obviously, the mysterious black pagoda monument was still doing the final statistics of the combat strength rankings. At the front of the black pagoda monument, there were hundreds of powerful auras. They were obviously experts from the sects, and they were also staring at the black pagoda monument with bright eyes. Dongfang Ting and Xian Xian were also among them. Thousands of disciples who were on experience immediately rushed to the martial arts practice field. They were so excited that even their bodies were trembling. Their eyes were wide open as they looked at the black pagoda monument. Everyone knew that the ranking on the pagoda monument this time would be the preliminary ranking of their 100 Empire ranking. Although it was not completely real, it possessed absolute authority. The disparity would not be too great. SSSS, 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 a majestic and dense aura accompanied the resplendent golden light. When the transfer array gradually disappeared and no more cultivators walked out, the resplendent golden light on the black pagoda tablet finally began to weaken until it completely disappeared. One by one, the golden names finally stopped. Gao Jianfei. Voila! When they saw the name at the top of the black pagoda monument, countless cultivators immediately cried out in alarm. The Wind Cloud Empire's Gao Jianfei was already someone that everyone knew. He was originally ranked second. However, at this moment, he was ranked first. Meng Yi, who was originally ranked first, was now ranked second. What shocked all the cultivators, including the sex experts, were the two people ranked third and 10th. Leng Yihan and Chen Hao. When Leng Yihan and Chen Hao started their training, they were both rank 8 martial emperors. However, at this moment, one was ranked third, and the other was ranked 10th. After all, he had defeated 2 rank 6 martial ancestor realm participants ranked third in the Sky Tyrant Empire. However, although the rank 8 martial emperor Chen Hao was ranked first in the Xuanwu Empire, the person ranked below him was only a rank 2 martial ancestor realm. Yet now, Chen Hao had risen to 10th, and obtained the qualifications to become a seeded participant. This was simply unimaginable. Dongfang Ting rubbed her eyes. She thought that she was seeing things. However, Chen Hao's name was indeed ranked 10th. Xian Xian also opened her little mouth in shock. She did not dare to believe her eyes. Following that, cries of alarm began to sound from the entire martial practice ground. They were either cries of joy after seeing their own rankings or sighs of disappointment after seeing their own rankings. Or they were shocked by the rankings of someone they knew. When Tan Tai Lian and the others saw that Chen Hao was ranked 10th, other than being pleasantly surprised, they did not seem to be surprised in the slightest. That was the truth. At this moment, no one knew better than the 4 of them how abnormal Chen Hao was. When Chen Hao was a rank 2 martial ancestor realm, he was able to kill rank 7 martial ancestor realm cultivators like killing chickens. Now that he was a rank 9 martial ancestor realm cultivator, who could possibly defeat him? To the 4 of them, being ranked 10th did not match Chen Hao's true battle strength at all. 30th. Chen Hao, I'm ranked 30. After Tan Tai Lian saw her own ranking, she immediately spoke in a pleasantly surprised manner. In the past, she had been ranked last. Even now, when she recalled the situation back then, she felt embarrassed. Fortunately, Chen Hao had reminded her in time. As for now, she was able to increase her ranking to such a level. Tan Tai Lian knew very well that it was all thanks to Chen Hao. I'm ranked 123. Yang Fan also said in a slightly excited manner. 249. Ni Giant Pain said as he clenched his fist. Damn. I'm the lowest, only 282. Li Feng seemed to be very dissatisfied as he spoke. However, the smile on his face showed that he was very satisfied. Not bad. I believe that your true battle strength should be higher. Chen Hao said with a slight smile. Chen Hao, thank you. Yang Fan said as he stared at Chen Hao. Thank you. Without you, we wouldn't have our current results. No need to thank me. We're brothers, don't treat me as an outsider. Ha. Li Feng, who was more carefree than Yang Fan and Ni Giant Pain, said bluntly. However, the way he looked at Chen Hao was no different from the way he looked at the other two. Tan Tai Lian's face was slightly red, but she did not say anything. This is only the preliminary rankings. The real competition has yet to begin. Don't relax now. Chen Hao said. Of course not. Chen Hao, not bad. What a strong aura. At this moment, a voice entered Chen Hao's ears. The arrogant Leng Yihan appeared in front of Chen Hao out of thin air. His sharp eyes carried an aura of inspection as he looked at Chen Hao with surprise. Tan Tai Lian, Yang Fan, and the other three were slightly surprised. They did not know that Chen Hao and Leng Yihan knew each other. They thought that he was looking for trouble. The four of them immediately stood beside Chen Hao. You're not bad either. Third place, much higher than me. Chen Hao said with a slight smile as he gently waved his hand at Tan Tai Lian and the other three. You've improved more than me. Leng Yihan said as he looked at Tan Tai Lian and the other three. His eyes also carried a trace of shock as he said, it seems that your encounters are quite interesting. If I had known earlier, I would have been with you. I'm only a 6th grade martial ancestor now, grade is just a concept. It doesn't affect you, Chen Hao said. Hearing Chen Hao's words, Leng Yihan shook his head slightly and said, it seems that I still need to break through a little. Chen Hao, do you want to bet with me? Bet? What bet? Bet on the rankings. In the final ranking, I'll be higher than you. Promise me one thing. If you're higher than me, I'll promise you one thing. 4th place may not be in good condition after midnight. For those who can't wait, you can look at it tomorrow. If you like this work, you're welcome to vote for it at Qidian. Calm. Chapter 179. Bet, I like it. But you have to tell me what the conditions are, right? Chen Hao stared at Leng Yihan after a moment of surprise. You can name your conditions. Of course, I can name my conditions as well. It's just a bet for the sake of a bet. Of course, whether it's you or me, the conditions must be approved by the other party. In other words, we have to discuss it and can't force the other party to do something they don't want to do. Is that okay? Leng Yihan's lips curled into a provocative smile as he stared at Chen Hao. However, his heart was far from being as calm as he appeared on the surface. Okay. I also look forward to fighting with you. Let's bet. Chen Hao said readily. It's a deal. Leng Yihan said as he extended his hand to Chen Hao. Chen Hao smiled. With a snap, he held Leng Yihan's hand tightly. What made Chen Hao flabbergasted was that this fellow's height was obviously not much different from his own, but his hand was an entire fist smaller than his own. The feeling of holding it, it was like, cough cough. Chen Hao hurriedly let go of his hand and said, deal. As soon as Leng Yihan left, a figure appeared in front of Chen Hao out of thin air. Senior sister. Seeing Dongfang Ting, Chen Hao immediately smiled and shouted. As for Xian Xian, Chen Hao only nodded. Congratulations. I really didn't expect you to be a seeded player. Your improvement is also amazing. Dongfang Ting was pleasantly surprised as she looked at Chen Hao's group of 5 with a trace of shock in her eyes. She said, I think you can all go to a good sect. That's right. This time, you have won glory for our Xuanwu Empire. Chen Hao, Tan Tai Lian, Yang Fan, Ni Jian Pain, Li Feng, senior sister, I can now guarantee you that no matter what your final ranking is on the 100 Empire ranking, our sword faction will take you in. At that time, with senior sister here, I guarantee you will be valued by the sect. At this moment, Xian's figure mysteriously appeared before the 5 of them. She glanced at Dong Fangting with an arrogant expression and smiled at the 5 of them. Originally, she only had eyes for Chen Hao. Yang Fan, Ni Jian Pain, and Li Feng were nothing in her eyes, not to mention Tan Tai Lian, who was the weakest back then. But now, the 4 of them, especially Tan Tai Lian, had increased their strength to an inconceivable level. As long as she was willing, she would definitely be able to enter a powerful sect that was at least a 6th grade sect. Yang Fan and the other 2 could also attract the attention of powerful sects above the 6th rank. After all, there were close to 4,000 disciples on the 100 Empire ranking and they were all in the top 300. They were definitely outstanding. Xian said so because she couldn't guarantee what Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lian would do. After all, their rankings were too high and they had more choices. However, Yang Fan, Ni Jian Pain, and Li Feng should be very happy. However, what she didn't expect was that no matter if it was Chen Hao, Tan Tai Lian, or Yang Fan's group of 3, they actually weren't excited at all. It was even to the extent that they looked at her with strange gazes. What? Could it be that you don't like our flying sword faction? Xian's expression changed slightly as she looked at the 5 of them and asked. Senior sister Xian, I'm sorry. Originally, we might have chosen the flying sword faction. After all, we have senior sister's protection. But now. Forgive me for being blunt, but we'd rather go to a low-grade sect than the flying sword faction. Li Feng didn't even frown as he spoke frankly and straightforwardly. Why? Xian looked a little embarrassed as she stared at Li Feng and asked. If it weren't for our luck, we would have died at the hands of your flying sword faction disciples. We don't want to go in and be suppressed. What? There's such a thing. That's the truth, Yang Fan said indifferently. How is that possible? Our sect's disciples who went on the training specially emphasized before the training to not have any conflicts with your 100 Empire ranking disciples. Tell me, no matter who it is, I'll report it to the elders and punish them severely. Don't worry. What's that disciple's name? Xian asked with a trace of anger. Clearly, she was very dissatisfied with the person who had ruined her recruitment of her own people and her strength in the flying sword faction. How can there be no one? Come here, all of you. When Xian came to find Chen Hao, the flying sword faction elder who was with her looked at the name on the black pagoda stele twice, but still couldn't find the person he was looking for. At this moment, he stood up and transmitted his voice to the lesser heaven stage outer sect disciples of the flying sword faction who had already gathered to participate in the training. Elder. Tai Zigong was the first to rush over. His expression was unsightly. Fan Fang's sister, Fan Yin, did you meet her? Elder. I met her. She's dead. She was killed by someone. Forgive this disciple's incompetence, but the person is very strong. What? Who is it? The elder asked in shock. Tai Zigong was the strongest disciple of the flying sword faction who had comprehended the true meaning of half-step space energy. How could he have seen her and been unable to protect her? Who could be so strong? The one ranked 10th on the pagoda stele, Chen Hao. Ah! The elder was dumbfounded when he heard this familiar name. Chen Hao was the person Xian wanted to rope in, and also the person the flying sword faction wanted to win over. How could there be such a coincidence? It's that. Why is senior Xian with them? Tai Zigong had long noticed the position of Chen Hao and the others, but he didn't dare to disturb the elder when he was looking at the pagoda stele. He didn't expect that in such a short time, Senior Xian Xian, an inner sect disciple of the Flying Sword faction, would be standing with Qin Hao and the others, as if they were talking about something. Xian Xian was the genius girl of the Flying Sword faction, and if there were no accidents, she would be promoted to a core disciple in less than a year. She was also a well-known figure in the Flying Sword faction. That Qin Hao can defeat you? The elder's expression became extremely conflicted as he stared at Tai Zigang and asked. He's very strong. At that time, he had just entered the Shenwu relic. He was only a low-grade martial great master, but, together with the girl called Tan Tai Lian, he obtained the inheritance of the Phoenix. The inheritance of the Phoenix? You're saying Qin Hao obtained the inheritance of the Phoenix? The elder asked in shock. Yes. Elder. I'm no match for him. And, even if Qin Hao didn't use the power of the inheritance, he wasn't any weaker than me at that time, and now, he should be even stronger. Tai Zigang didn't want to admit it, but when he thought of the battle with Qin Hao, he had to admit it. And since he couldn't save Fan Yin, he couldn't say that he was stronger than Qin Hao. Hearing Tai Zigang's affirmative answer, the elder was shocked and helpless at the same time. Fan Fong was a rare genius in the Flying Sword faction. Although he was only an inner sect disciple now, he had only been in the Flying Sword faction for 2 years. And he already had the ability to challenge a core disciple, but his level was not enough. He was much stronger than Xian Xian. He was someone that even the Flying Sword faction leader thought highly of. If not, he wouldn't have been so concerned about Fan Fong's request. But now, what a sin. We can only ignore this matter. Sigh, if it wasn't for this conflict, if Qin Hao could enter the Flying Sword faction. The elder shook his head and said. He didn't know if Xian Xian could pull Qin Hao into the Flying Sword faction, but looking at the current situation, there was probably no hope. He seemed to see a situation where Fan Fong would fight to the death with Qin Hao. If Qin Hao entered the Flying Sword faction, it wouldn't take long for him to be killed. If he entered other factions, he would also be hunted down by Fan Fong. And if Qin Hao could grow up smoothly, it was hard to say who would win and who would die in the future between him and Fan Fong. The inheritance of the Phoenix was one of the most powerful inheritances in the legends of the Shenwu ruins, and even in the world of cultivation, it couldn't be taken lightly. Plus, Qin Hao's abnormal talent, let's call him Tai Zigang. Li Feng said. Tai Zigang. Xian Xian frowned slightly. Obviously, she didn't know much about outer sect disciples. Okay, he's just a small outer sect disciple. Don't worry, I guarantee that he will be punished according to the sect rules, and won't dare to do anything against you. That's not important. At this moment, Qin Hao suddenly said, Tai Zigang just wanted to save someone, and I killed someone. Her name is Fan Yin. I heard that her brother is. What? You killed Fan Yin? Senior Xian Xian, you know. Seeing Xian Xian's shocked expression, Qin Hao frowned slightly and asked. Xian Xian didn't know the names of outer sect disciples, but Fan Yin, a disciple on the 100 Empire ranking, was known to Xian Xian. Immediately, Qin Hao understood that Xian Xian's brother must be a very famous person in the Flying Sword faction. Not only do I know you. Sigh, forget it. I originally wanted to pull you into the Flying Sword faction so that you can have some help when I become a core disciple. But now it seems that it's impossible. If I pull you in, even I won't be able to save your lives. Qin Hao, you can choose as high level a sect as you can. Also, after entering the sect, no matter what mission it is, you must be careful when you come out. Fan Yin's brother, Fan Fong, is a super genius of the century in the Flying Sword faction. He was promoted to an inner sect disciple in 2 years, and broke through from the martial ancestor realm to the Golden Core realm. Alright, that's it. Work hard. Our Xuanwu Empire has never had such good results, but, if you die in Fan Fong's hands, everything will be gone. After Xian Xian finished speaking, she stared deeply at Qin Hao, shook her head, and floated away. Dong Fong Ting also looked at Qin Hao in astonishment. Chen Hao's expression didn't change at all. Instead, a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He said, "Senior sister, I suddenly feel that Xian is just a little arrogant and overbearing. In fact, she's not that annoying. You still have the mood to think about this?" Dongfang Ting stared at Chen Hao. "Then what should I think about? I've heard of Fan Fong. There are many geniuses in the sect. Those who are promoted to the sect from the 100 Empire ranking are all mediocre. Fan Fong, on the other hand, stands out from the crowd. Most of the talented direct disciples in the world of cultivation cannot compare to him. Xian is right. You must be careful, seeking monthly votes. Seeking recommendation votes. I didn't expect to complete the mission in advance. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote." Chapter 180. Sorry for being late by more than an hour. The plot twist was written super slowly. It took almost 6 hours. Disciples of the 100 Empire ranking, Old Man is the manager of the Thousand Treasures Chamber of Commerce, Lu Wuxiang. First of all, Old Man represents the 50 great sects that organized this year's 100 Empire ranking to congratulate all of you on successfully completing your training. A few minutes later, a white-haired old man with a youthful complexion and an amiable face stepped on an auspicious cloud and slowly landed on the rostrum as he spoke softly. His faint and not loud voice clearly traveled into the ears of the disciples who were still discussing spiritedly. The entire martial arts practice field immediately quieted down. Your luck for this year's 100 Empire ranking is very good. You've encountered a powerful area that is rarely seen in the divine martial remains. It's much better than the areas that have been opened in the past. The inheritance and improvement you've obtained from the remains are also better than the previous years. However, this is only the beginning. 3 days later, the 100 Empire ranking competition will officially begin. The Thousand Treasures Chamber of Commerce is one of the 5 great chambers of commerce in the Eastern continent. It is also the manager in charge of organizing this year's 100 Empire ranking. There are tens of thousands of sects in the Eastern continent. Not all sects participate in the 100 Empire ranking that is held every 2 years. Every year, 50 sects will be chosen from those who have signed up. Your training grounds, expenses, etc., will all be funded by these 50 sections. The higher the grade of the sect, the greater the amount of funding. Dongfang Ting, who was still beside Chen Hao's group of 5, explained while the old man spoke. Senior sister, I've also heard of the Dragon Transformation ranking. Do you know of it? When the manager of the Thousand Treasures Chamber of Commerce, Lu Wuxiang, began to introduce the details of the 50 sects one by one, Chen Hao could not help but ask the question in his heart. He had already known from Xia Yuyu that the Dragon Transformation ranking was in existence higher than the 100 Empire ranking. But now, it seemed that they only needed the 100 Empire ranking to enter the sects of the cultivation world. Furthermore, until now, no one had mentioned the Dragon Transformation ranking. Of course I know. The Dragon Transformation ranking is in existence higher than the 100 Empire ranking. The intensity of the competition is far from what the 100 Empire ranking can compare to. You will naturally know these things when you truly begin to live in the cultivation world. The Dragon Transformation List was a competition set up by the entire Eastern Continent's cultivation world for those cultivators who did not belong to any sections. In other words, they were loose cultivators, or the genius disciples of the super dynasties, large clans, and forces of the cultivation world that did not belong to any sect. The so-called dragon transformation was like a fish leaping over the dragon gate, reaching the heavens in a single bound. It was also one of the ways the sect selected disciples. Compared to the 100 Empire rankings, there are many more choices. All the sects in the cultivation world of the Eastern continent pay close attention to it. What are the conditions to participate? Chen Hao asked. Why? Do you want to participate? Dongfang Ting asked, slightly taken aback. I just want to know more, Chen Hao said. Below the age of 20, with a cultivation level of 6th stage martial saint and above, and without the restrictions of a sex identity. These were the 3 basic conditions. It's meaningless to you. Why is it meaningless? It's very simple. With your current cultivation and talent, the 3 rank 7 sects in the 100 Empire ranking will fight over you. Once you enter a sect, you will be a sect disciple. With this status, you will lose the right to participate in the Dragon Transformation List. After all, the Dragon Transformation List is also used by sects to select disciples. In the cultivation world, no sect will allow betrayal. You also heard that the 3 rank 7 sects are the 10,000 Pill Pavilion, Nirvana Valley, and Celestial Apex sect. Although they are all rank 7 sects, the 10,000 Pill Pavilion is undoubtedly the strongest. The 10,000 Pill Pavilion is famous in the alchemy world. Although it is only a rank 7 sect due to the number of experts, the treatment of the 10,000 Pill Pavilion disciples is no less than that of rank 8 or even rank 9 sects. Their wealth is not something an ordinary sect can compare to. Senior Sister's sword intent, you choose the 10,000 Pill Pavilion. Dongfang Ting said. Oh. We'll see when the time comes. Seeing that Dongfang Ting had changed the topic, Qin Hao said in a low voice, Senior Sister, do you mean that once the 100 Empire ranking is out, the disciples must choose a sect to enter? Qin Hao. Don't tell me you really want to participate in the Dragon Transformation List? Dongfang Ting saw that Qin Hao did not let go of this question. Clearly, it was not as simple as he said. Don't have such thoughts. Only the super geniuses in the top 3 of the 100 Empire ranking can give up the chance to choose. However, you are only a rank 9 martial ancestor now. Even if you are in the top 3, if you do not choose a sect, you will become a loose cultivator. That is definitely not possible. Not to mention that you have offended Fan Fong of the Flying Sword sect. Even if you did not offend anyone, without the protection of a sect and the benefits of cultivation, you will not be able to advance. Furthermore, you are only a rank 9 martial ancestor now. You do not meet the requirements. Furthermore, the Dragon Transformation List is released every 2 years. This time, it already ended last month. This means that even if you are in the top 3 and can give up the chance to choose, you must be a rank 6 martial saint and can only participate 2 years later. How could Fan Fong let you go in 2 years? Without the protection of a sect, he can kill you anytime, anywhere, as long as he finds you. Qin Hao nodded and did not say anything else. However, he already had his own thoughts in his heart. After Lu Wuxiang finished introducing all the sects, he arranged the disciples of the 100 Empire ranking into courtyards in the Myriad Treasures Chamber of Commerce. He also announced the method and rules of the 100 Empire ranking competition 3 days later. In reality, it was only the method. There were still no rules. 5 rays of light streaked across the sky. Under the guidance of the aura of the token, Qin Hao, Tan Tai Lian, and the other 4 arrived at a small mountain peak within 1,000 miles of the Myriad Treasures Chamber of Commerce. At the peak of the mountain, clouds curled up and covered by auspicious clouds. A courtyard that seemed like a paradise occupied the center of the mountain peak. This was only one of the many courtyards in the Myriad Treasures Chamber of Commerce. However, it was comparable to the manner of a large clan in the secular world. The dense spiritual qi of heaven and earth was incomparable to that of the secular world. Li Yifeng broke the silence and said with a smile, "Phew, the world of cultivation is indeed not something the empire can compare to." It's no wonder that the disciples who were able to enter the 100 Empire ranking were able to leave their peers in the dust when they returned to the empire a few years later. Hall Master Mu Qing was a god in our hearts back then. Compared to her, even Senior Dongfang Ting is probably inferior. They had heard the conversation between Qin Hao and Dongfang Ting clearly. Although they had only known each other for 6 months, the things that Qin Hao had brought to them were absolutely unimaginable. Of course, their understanding of Qin Hao was probably not something that Dongfang Ting could compare to. Therefore, although Qin Hao did not say anything in the end, they had already guessed that Qin Hao's goal had already left the 100 Empire ranking. This made the 4 of them somewhat conflicted. In particular, Li Yifeng could not bear to look at Tan Tai Lian, who had a bitter and silent expression on her face. After 6 months, Li Yifeng, who understood women the best, naturally discovered Tan Tai Lian's thoughts. Indeed, Chen Hao said with a slight smile. After his gaze swept across the 4 of them, he looked into the distance and said, "All good things must come to an end. I know that all of you have already seen through my thoughts. Although I don't know much about the world of cultivation, I think that the grade of the sect is actually not important. What truly depends on oneself. I have a reason to participate in the dragon transformation list, but it is definitely not for a higher grade sect. When the time comes, all of you will naturally understand. Then what are you doing it for?" Hearing Chen Hao's words, the 4 of them were slightly taken aback. Tan Tai Lian could not help but ask. Chen Hao glanced at Tan Tai Lian. After pondering for a moment, he shifted his gaze and looked into the distance. His gaze became bitter, but it was also close to indifference. He hardened his heart and said softly, "A girl. She should still be alive, a girl." Tan Tai Lian was instantly taken aback. Yang Fan, Li Yifeng and Ni Jianpain also widened their eyes in shock. Chen Hao did not give the 4 of them, especially Tan Tai Lian, time to be surprised. He said directly, "All right, all of you return to your rooms to cultivate. In 3 days, the competition will officially begin. As for which sect you can enter, it will be up to you. However, I have a suggestion that you can listen to. Of course, the choice is still up to you." Chen Hao said, "The division of sects from grade 1 to 9 is definitely not as simple as the division of cultivators. Otherwise, wouldn't the grade 1 and grade 2 sects have long been destroyed? For a sect, even a grade 1 sect, to be able to stand tall in the world of cultivation, it must have its own advantages. You've all heard the introductions to the various sections. Each of them has their own strengths. So, when you're choosing a sect, don't just limit yourself to the level of the sect. What you should consider more is which sect is most suitable for you. Go." After Chen Hao finished speaking, his figure flashed and he walked into a room. Li Yifeng, Yang Fan and Ni Jianpain glanced at Tan Tai Lian, whose face was slightly pale and her delicate body was slightly trembling. They could only sigh in their hearts and quietly walked into their own rooms. Tan Tai Lian didn't know how long she had been standing outside. It wasn't until the sky was completely dark and the cool mountain breeze blew her thin clothes and messed up her long hair that she came back to her senses. She gently wiped the corners of her eyes and walked back to her room. There were no feelings in the first place. They walked together because they were both disciples of the Xuanwu Empire. In the 6 months that they were together, other than cultivating and fighting, it was still cultivating and fighting. What did they have between them? What did she understand about him? Nothing at all, other than his name and his talent. She knew nothing about him. So what if he saved her life? So what if he helped her cultivate? He only treated her as the same existence as Yang Fan and the other 2. The only difference was that they both received the Phoenix inheritance. But after all, they were not Phoenix and Phoenix. At this time, he clearly said that it was for a girl. What did that mean? He already had someone he liked. The other party was not her. She could only be envious and jealous of her. Even though they had gone through that naked scene, it was still when they received the inheritance. They were forced to do so. Moreover, nothing had happened. Why should he be responsible? It's just my wishful thinking. Tan Tai Lian took one last look at Chen Hao's room and murmured. Then, she walked into her own room. Those who still have monthly votes, please support Dark Mountain. Thank you. There will be more updates today. Chapter 181. Requesting monthly votes. Thank you. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. In these 3 days, the outer sect elders of the 50 sects who were in charge of recruiting disciples all rushed to Green Fluorescent City, which was thousands of miles away from the Myriad Treasures Chamber of Commerce. Green Fluorescent City was the largest city within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles. Countless merchants gathered there, and it was one of the largest trading cities for cultivators in the eastern continent. It was also one of the gathering places for independent cultivators, large clans, and other forces. It was extremely prosperous and densely populated. Today, early in the morning, tens of thousands of people had gathered at the largest martial arts practice field of green fluorescent city's Myriad Treasures Chamber of Commerce, and they were still pouring in. These people were young and old, men and women. Some had high cultivation, and many had low cultivation. However, most of them were below the martial arts grandmaster realm. The so-called cultivation world did not only consist of experts. The people who were born and raised here could be found everywhere. They had no cultivation at all, and they made up the vast majority. Just like the secular world, most of them were ordinary people, and only a few were cultivators. It was the same in the cultivation world. They were just natives of the cultivation world, and they had the right to live in the cultivation world from birth. It was unlike the secular world, where one had to go through layers of selections to obtain the right to enter the cultivation world. Of course, after entering the cultivation world with such difficulty, their status would also surpass that of ordinary people, and they would become the sect disciples that the natives of the cultivation world yearned for and envied. This time, in addition to the outer sect elder in charge of recruiting disciples, there were also many inner sect disciples from the 50 sections. These inner sect disciples were basically from the 100 Empire ranking. The reason why they came was that they might be able to rope in disciples they liked in their sections. Just like the relationship between Dong Fangting, Xian Xian, and the others and Qin Hao's group of 5, with this relationship, at least Qin Hao's group of 5 would consider the sects that Dong Fangting and Xian Xian belonged to. Among these inner sect disciples, Fan Fang of the Flying Sword sect was among them. Early in the morning, he sat gloomily in the Flying Sword sect's VIP seat, waiting alone. It had been 6 months. When he had obtained his sister's death from the Seal of Life and Death, he had wanted nothing more than to crush the person who had killed his sister. However, he could only endure because the disciples of the 100 Empire ranking were still training. Even if they had finished their training, he still had to endure. He could only wait until the end of the 100 Empire rankings before he would have a chance to take revenge. Seated contestant, Qin Hao. I'd like to see how capable you are. Phoenix Inheritance. Don't even think about being a match for me once you've truly grown up. What's more, do you think I, Fan Fang, will give you the chance to grow? 3 days ago, when the elders of the Flying Sword sect, Xian Xian, and the other outer sect disciples had rushed to the Myriad Treasures Chamber of Commerce, he had already obtained the name of the person who had killed his sister from Tai Zigong. Originally, he didn't know what Qin Hao's name was. He only saw the appearance of the person who killed his sister when she was on the verge of death in the Seal of Life and Death. Now, he finally found a match. Dong! Dong! A rising sun slowly rose from the east, accompanied by the melodious sound of a bell. The boundary of the Myriad Treasures Chamber of Commerce's core martial arts practice field slowly opened. Countless spectators immediately looked up at the sky. The densely packed cultivators flying in the air were like locusts approaching from afar, appearing before everyone's eyes. Every one of them was extremely young, and their faces were filled with excitement and anticipation. These people were the disciples of the 100 Empire ranking who had rushed over from the Myriad Treasures Chamber of Commerce's base. Under the leadership of Lu Wuxiang and several experts of the Myriad Treasures Chamber of Commerce, they directly landed on a contestant's seat in the martial arts practice field that could accommodate 5,000 people. When Qin Hao and the other disciples saw the dense crowd in the martial arts practice field, as well as the terrifying martial arts practice field that could accommodate hundreds of thousands of people, they all revealed a look of horror. They had never heard of a martial arts practice field of this level, let alone seen one. Especially before the restriction of the martial arts practice field was opened, they looked at it from the air and it was only 1,000 feet in size. However, after entering, they discovered that it was a completely different world. It was obvious that it contained an extremely powerful spatial restriction. Layers of stairs rose up, forming circles of circular grandstands. At the lowest point of the grandstand's core, there was a circular platform with a diameter of 3,000 feet. On the platform, there was a core main arena. 10 small arenas were evenly distributed around the main arena. Although they were called small arenas, they were larger than all the arenas Chen Hao had seen, not to mention the incomparably huge main arena. What a strong aura! This year's 100 Empire ranking is indeed the strongest in recent years. It's said that it has something to do with the opening of the Shenwu ruins this time. Many people have obtained powerful inheritances. Yes. The Myriad Treasures Chamber of Commerce has made a lot of money this time. 2 days ago, they announced that several people had obtained the inheritances of divine beasts. With the Myriad Treasures Chamber of Commerce's reputation, they shouldn't be spreading the news to earn entrance fees. Of course not. According to reliable sources, some people have obtained the Phoenix and Azure Dragon inheritances. As for the rest, I'm not sure yet. Who cares? Anyway, I'm going to gamble big this time, hee. A small gamble is good for the mood, a big gamble is bad for the body. I'm not as lucky as you. I'll just gamble a little. Watching the 3,000 or so disciples of the 100 Empire ranking slowly descending, the densely packed crowd in the martial arts arena buzzed with discussion. There was still a large crowd at the entrance of the martial arts arena. Fan Fang's gaze locked onto Chen Hao the moment Chen Hao and the others appeared. Chen Hao's vigorous and condensed aura, coupled with his extraordinarily handsome appearance, if not for the fact that he was an enemy, even Fan Fang would have to secretly praise him. Just this unique calmness and composure alone was enough to qualify him to be in the top 10 of the 100 Empire ranking. But at this moment, Fan Fang's gaze on Chen Hao was filled with a monstrous murderous intent and anger. If he had not tried his best to restrain himself, he would have shocked everyone by now. But even so, it made the people around him cast sidelong glances at him. In particular, Xian, who had just arrived, frowned slightly. She wanted to resolve it, but she knew that it was impossible. She could only worry for Chen Hao and secretly pray that he would not fall into Fan Fang's hands. 7 in the morning, 9 in the morning. 50 old men with white hair and ruddy complexions, exuding a terrifying and dignified aura, landed on the rostrum on auspicious clouds and sat down. The referees of the 10-sided arena also took their places. The manager in charge of the 100 Empire ranking this time, Lu Wuxiang, slowly landed on the main stage. He had a warm smile on his face. After bowing slightly to the audience, he said in a deep voice, "This year's 100 Empire ranking competition officially begins." Hiss, hiss, hiss. As soon as Lu Wuxiang's words fell, a violent energy fluctuation suddenly appeared above the huge main arena. Rays of golden light flashed and a huge black tower tablet appeared out of thin air. It stood tall in the middle of the main arena. Golden names appeared on all 4 sides of the main arena. The 4 sides were exactly the same, and the cultivators were divided into 10 groups. The 10 seeded contestants were divided into 10 groups. And at this moment, in each group, the names of the 2 contestants were side by side, connected by a golden line. Obviously, this was the opponent that each of them would face in the first round. The 10 seeded contestants are divided into 10 groups, with 328 people in each group. There are a total of 3,280 disciples. The list of opponents for the first round of elimination has been decided. The 10-sided arena will open at the same time. Now, the competition officially begins. Following Lu Wuxiang's crisp voice, the referees of the 10-sided arena appeared one after another. First group, first round, seeded contestant Gao Jianfei vs Yang Wei, please enter the arena. Second group, first round, seeded contestant Meng Yi vs Chen Jun, please enter the arena. Third group, first round, seeded contestant Leng Yihan vs Fan Zhe, please enter the arena. 10th group, first round, seeded contestant Chen Hao vs Qiu Qianli, please enter the arena. Whoosh! 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 Following the loud voice of the referees of the 10-sided arena, 10 figures rose into the air without any hesitation and flew directly to their respective arenas. These 10 people were the 10 seeded contestants. and the other 10 people's faces turned green. It was undoubtedly extremely unlucky to encounter the strongest seeded contestant in the first round of elimination. Moreover, these 10 people were all in the middle of the 3,000 disciples. This arrangement was equivalent to following the Black Tower tablets ranking. Those above the middle were the advanced group, and those below the middle were the lower group. The strongest contestant of the advanced group was going against the strongest contestant of the lower group. It was very reasonable. But now, these 10 people would rather be ranked lower or higher. At least they would have a chance to perform. I admit defeat. I admit defeat. Although unwilling, the 10 people all chose to admit defeat without exception. This arrangement made it so that in the first round, there were more than 100 battles in each group. Only 10 or so people would fight on the arena, and the others would all admit defeat. No one dared to joke with their lives. To be able to make it this far, they would at least be able to enter a lower sect. It was better than risking their lives knowing that they could not win. That would be too stupid, and in the 10 groups, there were more than 100 people fighting on the arena. Very few of the lower-ranked contestants won, only 7 of them. In the first round, Chen Hao and the other 4 all won, and none of them had to fight. At the end of the first round, half of the disciples were eliminated. There were only 164 people left in each group. Next, the arrangement of the second round was still the same as the first round. There were still many people who admitted defeat. But this time, there were several times more people who did not admit defeat in the lower group than in the first round. The 10 seeded contestants still did not have a chance to fight. Tan Tai-Lien was ranked 30th overall, and she was in the same group as Chen Hao. She was the third expert in the 10th group. Basically, the top 3 experts in each group did not have a chance to fight in the second round. Yang Fan, Ni Jianping, and Li Yifeng all fought and won. The 5 of them advanced again. After the 2 rounds, there were only 82 people in each group. The arrangement did not change, but in the third round, except for the 10 seeded contestants, no one admitted defeat in any of the battles. The gap between each group was not too big. Everyone wanted to go on the arena and show off their talents so that the elders of the 50 sects would notice them. If they could catch the attention of a powerful sect, it would naturally be better. Tan Tai-Lien and Yang Fan won easily. Ni Jianping and Li Yifeng won with difficulty. At the end of the third round, there were only 41 people left in each group. At this time, the Black Pagoda tablet selected the 2 weakest people in each group to fight based on their combat power in the first 3 rounds. The loser would be eliminated. The winner would be in the top 40 of the group. Then, the 4th and 5th rounds began. Finally, when the sky was almost dark, the top 10 of each group were decided. Chen Hao did not have a chance to fight, and Tan Tai-Lien advanced to the top 10 easily. Yang Fan, who had comprehended the true essence of the wind element, also advanced to the top 10 easily. Meanwhile, Ni Jianping and Li Yifeng lost in the 5th round. Such a result was within his expectations. The real exciting battles were the round-robin matches after the top 10. It would officially begin tomorrow. Second update, looking for monthly votes. Recommendation votes. Chapter 182. Third update, those who still have monthly votes, please support Dark Mountain. Thank you. It was night. The night sky was clear, and the stars were shining brightly. In a cultivation room in a courtyard on the top of a mountain, there was a dense aura. A young man was sitting cross-legged, floating in midair. His body was shining with a resplendent 7-colored light that was incomparably intense. This kind of aura was clearly an existence that had already comprehended the mysteries of the 5 elements. What was even more shocking was that a coiled creature vaguely appeared above his head. Although it was only a few dozen feet long and was only an illusion, it made the young man's aura many times more terrifying. If anyone saw this creature, they would definitely be extremely shocked. Azure Dragon. Boom. As the dense aura around the young man's body became thicker and thicker, the moment it reached its peak, the young man's clothes suddenly exploded with a boom. In an instant, an extremely bright seven-colored light shone out, and the entire training room rumbled and shook. If this training room was the kind of training room in the mortal world, it would have collapsed directly. Roar! At that moment, the coiled azure dragon above the young man's head suddenly flew up and let out a dragon's roar that resounded through the heavens and earth. Even the powerful restrictions of the cultivation room were unable to stop the dragon's roar. In an instant, the mountain peak within a radius of a few hundred miles began to tremble. Rumbling sounds could be heard as countless rocks rolled down from the mountain peak. The huge commotion caused countless cultivators to walk out of their training rooms in shock. Whoosh! In the training room, the soaring azure dragon circled a few times above the young man's head, and then directly entered between the young man's eyebrows. Crack, crack, at that moment, the young man's completely naked body emitted strange cracking sounds. Sparkling and translucent azure dragon scales started to form on the young man's skin. First, it was his hands and feet, then his arms, legs, and then his body. Gradually, it spread to his face. His entire body was completely covered by the dragon scales. The young man opened his eyes and stared at his own body with great excitement. Then, his 5 fingers opened into a claw. Immediately, his hand strangely began to grow, and in an instant, it became an extremely sharp dragon claw. Just the aura alone was terrifying to the extreme. I have finally completely merged with the inheritance of the divine beast Azure Dragon. Ha ha ha, just in time, very good. Ha ha ha. I've only completed the first step of fusion. What's there to be excited about? At this moment, a childish voice sounded in the young man's mind. The voice was childish, but it sounded old. Of course I am. If I could have gotten my hands on you earlier in the Shenwu ruins, and not at the last moment, why would I have to risk my life now? Among the 10 seeded players, there will definitely be a place for me. Fortunately, they had finally fused tonight. Otherwise, if they were unlucky and met that kid tomorrow and were eliminated, wouldn't that be a pity? Now, not only have I succeeded in fusing with the divine light, I have also borrowed your power to break through to rank 1 martial saint. Ha ha ha, how could I not be excited? What bullshit seeded player, the champion of the 100 Empire rankings is none other than me. Ha ha ha. Don't be too complacent. Since you've obtained the inheritance of the Azure Dragon, the inheritances of the White Tiger, the Black Tortoise, the Vermilion Bird, the Qilin, and the Phoenix should also have appeared. The Vermilion Bird is the most troublesome, and the Phoenix is troublesome as well. However, this is a one-on-one competition. Facing the Phoenix and the Phoenix alone is not a threat to you. The others are about the same. The key is still up to you. I'm already a martial sage. Who can compare to me? It's said that the seeded player in my group, Chen Hao, is the one who obtained the Phoenix's inheritance. Then he should have only obtained the Phoenix's inheritance. He's not a threat, as long as you're stronger than him. Of course. He's only a rank 9 martial ancestor. Although, it's said that he's a very abnormal guy, I'm now a martial sage. Why would I be afraid of him? I can truly use the energy of the 5 elements. Ha! I can feel that my current strength has increased by tens of times. I was originally ranked 20, only 10 places away from him. I'm actually looking forward to meeting him tomorrow, ha ha ha. The aura of the Azure Dragon. Chen Hao, there's indeed someone who obtained the Azure Dragon's inheritance. White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, Black Tortoise, Qilin, there's definitely someone who obtained it too. Little Bird said with a trace of surprise in Chen Hao's mind. At almost the same time, there were 4 other youths, 2 males and 2 females, who had the same conversation with Chen Hao on the other 4 mountain peaks. However, those 4 youths, after a short moment of shock, began to madly cultivate, making the final dash. This was completely different from the majority of the top 10 disciples in the group. Because at this moment, the competition had already begun. It was too late to work hard now. Adjusting oneself to the best state and facing it with the best mentality was the best choice. But these 4 people were different. Because they were the same as that youth, they had obtained the white tiger, vermilion bird, black tortoise, and Qilin's inheritance respectively. However, until now, they had not truly completed the first step of the fusion. Chen Hao, if you meet them, you have to be careful. Sigh. Are you really not going to be with Xiao Yan? I mean in the future. There's no other way for the competition now. But in the future, only when Phoenix and I work together can we unleash our true power. Alone, there's no way we can contend against the 5 divine beasts. I've never thought of borrowing the strength of your inheritance. Chen Hao said bluntly, is there a way for you and Phoenix to give it to Xiao Yan? There is. There is? Why didn't you say so earlier? If you had said so earlier, you would have reunited earlier. Tell me, how to do it. It's very simple. As long as you and Xiao Yan have yin and yang intercourse and let her truly reach the realm of yin and yang balance, Phoenix and I can do any of you, that's equivalent to not saying anything. Go back to your nest, don't bother me. Chen Hao said with a frown. Right now, he was indeed a little annoyed. Because there were some things that even he himself did not know whether he was doing the right thing or not. The previous to him did not have any emotional experience. One was Xia Yuyu, whom he had met by accident, as if it was destined by fate. The other was Helian Wuzi, whom he had molested and had developed feelings for. Especially when he thought of Helian Wuzi, who had never truly exposed her feelings, crazily hitting the transmission light pillar with tears streaming down her face. Moreover, he was certain that 2 years later, Helian Wuzi would definitely be able to stand out from the 100 Empire rankings. These 2 already made him not know where to go. He could not tell which was more important and which was less. He could only let nature take its course and take one step at a time. How could he dare to do more? Moreover, right now, he did not want to have any emotional fetters. This was also one of the main reasons why he did not want to choose a sect on the 100 Empire rankings. Otherwise, there was no doubt that Tan Tailian, Yang Fan, and the others would choose the same sect as him. Moreover, with Tan Tailian's talent, there was probably no sect that would reject her. Yang Fan, Li Yifeng, and Ni Jianping also had high hopes. Therefore, when Tan Tailian asked why, he said that it was for a girl, for a breath of air. In reality, it was just for a breath of air. He, who exuded arrogance from his bones, would ruthlessly slap anyone who had once despised and ridiculed him. He wanted to let Xia Yuyu's family see that he, an insignificant person in a small county in the secular world, was not inferior to any bullshit genius. Therefore, he wanted to stand out from the rest on the dragon transformation list and amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. He wanted to become a target that the top sects of the Eastern continent would fight over. Only then would he be able to vent the depression in his heart. Cutting off the distracting thoughts in his mind, Chen Hao immersed himself in the comprehension of merging with the world. Today's group competition for the top 10 will be a round-robin competition. You will draw lots to determine your opponents. Each person will have 2 matches per day. The first and second place contestants will advance from their groups and enter the top 20 overall. All contestants, please step onto the stage and draw lots. The next day, the group competition for the top 10 officially began. The martial arts arena, which could hold hundreds of thousands of people, was filled to the brim today. Countless rogue cultivators, sect disciples, and experts from large families and factions rushed into the arena. At least half of them were here to make a bet. In the long life of the cultivation world, this was undoubtedly one of the greatest pleasures. Especially for the sect disciples, the poorer rogue cultivators were even more enthusiastic about it. Soon, the results of the draw were out. Each group of 10 contestants drew a number from 1 to 10. In the first round, number 1 would fight number 2, number 3 would fight number 4, and so on. Each group would have 5 matches. The 10 groups would proceed with their matches one by one. After completing the first round, they would all fight in the central arena. First group, first match, number 1, Li Yuran, and number 2, Wan Yi, please step onto the stage. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 figures immediately flew from the contestants' seats to the arena. The aura around them bloomed as they flew. Wan Yi, ranked 11th on the pagoda stele, and Li Yuran, ranked 91st. There's no suspense in the outcome. If nothing unexpected happens, Li Yuran will lose. The odds for this match aren't high. I bet 100,000 grade 8 spirit pills. Even if I win, I'll only earn 10,000 pills. Your way of betting is too steady. You won't make a fortune. I only bet 10,000 pills on Wan Yi winning. If I win, I'll earn 100,000 pills. Ha! That's a waste. What if? Don't forget that guy's name is Wan Yi. Wan Yi, if he loses, won't I make a fortune? Winning big with small is the shortcut to riches. Anyway, I won't die if I lose. Countless people in the audience began to discuss when Wan Yi and Li Yuran entered the arena. Clearly, in the round-robin competition for the top 10 contestants, there were corresponding odds for each match. Chen Hao and the other disciples of the 100 Empire ranking were shocked when they heard the discussions. The wealth of the cultivation world was, of course, even more shocking was the wealth of the myriad treasures Chamber of Commerce. This was a martial arts arena with hundreds of thousands of people. How many people had bet? Even if each person bet 1,000 pills, how much would that be? How much wealth would one need to afford such a bet? Boom! Boom! Following the referee's words, Wan Yi and Li Yuran's aura soared crazily at the same time. Ah! What? What is this? Almost in an instant, before the two had even started fighting, they had only activated their protective auras and raised their battle intent, which caused the entire martial arts practice field to erupt into cries of surprise. Numerous gazes were instantly locked onto Li Yuran's figure. Divine Beast Black Tortoise. Requesting monthly votes and recommendation votes. Thank you. Chapter 183. First update, requesting for monthly votes. Recommendation votes. Dark Mountain is going all out. The promise is still there, but our monthly votes, today, we only have a pitiful 2 votes. An enormous image was faintly discernible as it enveloped Li Yuran's body. If that wasn't the appearance of the Divine Beast Black Tortoise, what else could it be? It really is the Divine Beast's inheritance. Fuck, what a loss. Ha, we've struck it rich. Following the exclamations of the several 100,000 spectators in the martial practice field, the elders of the 50 different sects on the viewing platform also revealed expressions of excitement. This was especially true for the elders of the 3 rank 7 sections. The gazes with which they looked at Li Yuran already revealed an aura of absolute certainty. Last night, the enormous commotion caused by the appearance of the Divine Beast Azure Dragon's inheritance had already confirmed the rumors. It was even more conclusive that Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lian had obtained the Phoenix's inheritance. And now, Li Yuran had obtained the Divine Beast Black Tortoise's inheritance with their own eyes. What did this mean? It meant that it was very possible that the inheritances of the strongest divine beasts of the Divine Martial Empire would all appear. No wonder the auras of the 100 Empire rankings disciples this time around were much stronger than the previous tens of years. This time around, the Divine Martial Remnant has indeed opened the most valuable area. Unfortunately, I'm afraid that we won't have a share of the disciples that obtained the Divine Beast's inheritance. However, it's still pretty good. No matter what, the disciples that will obtain this time around are all stronger than before, the elders on the viewing platform were also spiritedly discussing. Humph, the inheritance of the Divine Beast Black Tortoise, you want to defeat me with just this? You're nothing more than a coward. Watch as I shatter your turtle shell. Go to hell. Collapsing sword slash. On the stage, Wan Yi, who originally had absolute confidence in his victory, was currently not afraid in the slightest despite being shocked. The aura on his body immediately soared crazily once again. His mouth was still as majestic as before. No matter what, he was still a rank 9 martial emperor, an expert ranked 11th on the pagoda stele. How could he possibly be frightened by the divine beast's inheritance? Boom! Just as he finished speaking, Wan Yi took a step forward. Surging origin power whizzed up. In an instant, it condensed into incomparably valiant sword light. It shone with a resplendent, breathtaking luster and a frightening, sharp aura. With a hiss, it was as if 10,000 rays of light shot out from the spiritual sword in his hand. Every ray of sword light contained a frightening amount of energy. It was enough to kill a 7th-level martial grandmaster expert. Such a frightening amount of power caused the entire audience in the martial arts practice field to be shocked. Especially the few contestants in the same group as Wan Yi, they were even more terrified. Ranked 11th on the Black Pagoda Monument, the second-ranked expert of the group, he was indeed not someone they could contend against. Xian, Wu, change. Li Yuran, who seemed to be shrouded in a tortoise shell, had a gloomy and disdainful expression on his face as he stared at the terrifying sword light that was rapidly approaching him. Black Tortoise Transformation. As the word change came out of his mouth, the phantom of the divine beast Black Tortoise that shrouded him suddenly shrank several times, like a layer of protective gang qi that clung to his body. It emitted an extremely cold aura, and his whole body was shrouded in a mysterious icy blue color. Peng 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 peng. At the same time, dense explosive sounds were emitted from under Li Yuran's feet. His whole body actually welcomed Wan Yi's attack with his bare hands. Both of his feet tapped on the ground, and wherever he passed, a series of deep pits appeared. His speed became faster and faster, and the entire arena that was shrouded in a barrier began to tremble violently. The terrifying sword light was as fast as lightning, and the moment it was about to collide with Li Yuran, roar. Li Yuran was like an ancient fierce beast, and he let out a violent roar. Above his head, there was a faint phantom of the black tortoise stretching its neck. In an instant, the icy blue light on his body became more and more condensed. With a bang, his whole body fiercely collided with the sword light. Rumble. A terrifying explosion of energy spread out from the incomparably huge arena, causing the entire martial arts practice field to tremble violently. Some of the spectators with low cultivations actually jumped out of their seats in fright, screaming in fear. The might of the black tortoise, is it something that you can resist? Die. When they saw the scene on the arena again, what shocked everyone was that Li Yuran actually broke through the layers of sword light. Accompanied by a cold and arrogant voice, he threw out a punch. The veins on Wan Yi's face twitched, and he suddenly let out a roar. He gathered all of his cultivation and stabbed out with his sword. Clang! Rumble! The tip of the sword and the fist collided, and there was a burst of dazzling sparks and the sound of metal clashing. With a loud explosion, Wan Yi, who originally thought that he would win, was directly sent flying. He spat out a mouthful of blood in the air. Although he was endlessly unwilling, when he sensed Li Yuran's rapidly approaching figure, he did not dare to have any hesitation. He fearfully shouted, "I admit defeat." As expected of the divine beast Black Tortoise. Its defensive ability is actually so strong. The elders on the rostrum all exclaimed in admiration. However, the entire arena was in a state of shock. They were still immersed in the shock brought by Li Yuran. He hasn't even completed the first step of fusion, and he's still a 9th-grade martial great master. He's no match for me. On the contestants' seating area, a youth restrained his aura. He had a relaxed expression on his face as he stared at Li Yuran, who was flying towards the contestants' seating area. Don't be careless. The Black Tortoise's defense is the strongest among us. He hasn't completed the first step of fusion. Who knows if he'll have completed it when we meet. Moreover, he'll also borrow the energy from the fusion to break through to the martial saint realm. So what? I'm not just a martial saint. I'm a martial saint who has comprehended the operation of the 5 elements. What's more, my ranking is much higher than his by a large margin. Don't worry, when I easily destroy that worthless inheritance, you'll know how strong I am. Hee hee. The youth confidently said to the divine beast Azure Dragon in his body. As he spoke, his gaze was filled with provocation and disdain as he looked at Chen Hao, who was not far away. However, Chen Hao's gaze was only fixed on Li Yuran, who had just walked down from the arena. He did not seem to care about the gaze that was looking at him. In the past 2 days, Chen Hao had already gotten used to being stared at by others. Even though he was only the 10th and last seeded contestant. However, he and Leng Yihan were the most eye-catching existences. Before the experiential training, they were both only rank 8 martial emperors. However, at this moment, they had obtained the qualifications to become seeded contestants among over 3,000 disciples. The only gaze that Chen Hao cared about was one of them. It was a sinister gaze that had practically never left him after he appeared. That gaze was very powerful. It was so powerful that just by looking at it, Chen Hao felt that it was an existence that he could not resist. Chen Hao knew who it was. Even without Dongfang Ting and Xian Xian's voice transmissions, he knew who it was. It was the super genius disciple of the Imperial Sword School, Fan Fang. He was an abnormal existence who had advanced from martial great master to Golden Core realm in 2 years. The entire Imperial Sword School valued him greatly. He was a disciple whose name shook the entire cultivation world. Although Chen Hao was confident, at this moment, he was not foolish enough to confront him head-on. However, he was not afraid. He would still do what he had to do. Furthermore, he believed that even without the protection of the sect, he had an 80% chance of escaping from his opponent. Following that, the second group, the third group, and so on, the first and second group's contestants all stepped onto the arena. The strength and battle power they displayed were also powerful and brilliant. However, they could not be compared to Li Yuran, who had obtained the divine beast's inheritance. When the first and second group's contestants of the 7th group stepped onto the arena, the entire martial practice field exploded. Even the experts on the platform were no exception. The divine beast Vermilion Bird's inheritance had appeared. The young girl ranked 137th on the Black Pagoda Steel, Chu Liqin, used the power of the divine beast Vermilion Bird's inheritance to turn the entire main arena into a sea of flames. She burned the 47th ranked contestant half to death. If he had not admitted defeat in time, he would have lost his life. For the first match of the 10th group, number 1 Zhong Yandong and number 2 Tan Tai Lian, please step onto the arena. Voila! Following the referee's announcement, the entire martial practice field exploded into an uproar. Zhong Yandong was ranked 40 on the Black Pagoda Steel, while Tan Tai Lian was ranked 30. However, no one thought that Zhong Yandong would definitely win this match. This was because the rumor that Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lian had obtained the Phoenix's inheritance was the earliest to appear and the most conclusive. The reason why it was so sensational was because Tan Tai Lian was also one of the most dazzling existences. She, who had been ranked last on the Black Pagoda Steel, was now ranked 30. Furthermore, she had obtained the divine beast's inheritance. Even though it was the most useless Phoenix's inheritance among the 6 divine beasts, it was still a divine beast's inheritance. No one dared to underestimate it. When Tan Tai Lian took a deep breath and stood up, Chen Hao said softly, "Victory or defeat is not important. Just be careful. I will definitely win." Hiss. Tan Tai Lian transformed into a stream of light and flew onto the arena. She was dressed in a long pink robe. Her aura was pure and untainted. Just like her name, she was like a blooming lotus flower. But compared to her past self, at this moment, although she was only a willing one, her entire body was filled with a powerful aura. She was no longer as weak and delicate as before. She, who had obtained the Phoenix's inheritance and refined her body with the Nirvana flame, was stronger than an ordinary 9th grade martial grandmaster. Why are all of you so stubborn? Looking at the expression on Tan Tai Lian's face, Chen Hao shrugged helplessly. Beauty is also taken. The Phoenix's inheritance requires the union of yin and yang. She is already Chen Hao's woman, I'm so envious. The two of them must have entered the same sect. They have the Phoenix's inheritance. Furthermore, one of them is a martial artist and one of them is a martial artist. Such a couple is simply a perfect match. I seem to be witnessing the birth of a pair of immortal couples. You probably don't know who Chen Hao offended, right? Fan Fang, the super genius of the Flying Sword faction, Fan Fang. Look at where the disciples of the Flying Sword faction are. It is said that Chen Hao killed Fan Fang's most beloved sister during his training. Ah, immortal couples, I'm afraid it will be difficult. Fan Fang has only entered the sect for 2 years and is already an inner disciple. Furthermore, he has the battle power to challenge core disciples. Such a super genius, the inheritance of a divine beast, is really nothing. The buzzing of discussion came from the martial arts practice field. Obviously, there was no such thing as an airtight wall. The conflict between Chen Hao and Fan Fang had already spread. The others only treated it as a topic of conversation. However, Chen Hao's ears twitched. When he heard these words, his handsome face revealed an incomparable struggle. Who the hell said that the Phoenix's inheritance requires the union of yin and yang? Isn't this ruining little Lien's reputation? Friends who still have monthly votes, please support Dark Mountain. Thank you. Continue to write the second update. Chapter 184. Note, brothers and sisters who still have monthly votes, please support Dark Mountain. Thank you. Damn it. Chen Hao couldn't help but curse in a low voice. What's wrong? Li Feng immediately asked. Yang Fan and Ni Jianping also looked at Chen Hao. After 6 months of being together, the three of them understood Chen Hao quite well. No matter what he encountered, he was calm, experienced, and wise. They couldn't compare to him at all. It was as if even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him, he could still remain calm and composed. But, why was he cursing at this time? Chen Hao frowned slightly as he looked at the three of them. He seemed to be very conflicted. When the three of them were a little scared, he finally asked, do you also think that after receiving the Phoenix's legacy, little Lien and I have already intercourse? Cough cough, Li Feng and the other two immediately coughed twice. Yang Fan and Ni Jianping immediately turned their heads. Li Feng, who was next to Chen Hao, couldn't avoid it in time. He could only look at Chen Hao and say, although we didn't receive the Phoenix's legacy, but the records of the divine beast's legacies still say it very clearly. Could it be that you and little Lien haven't done it? Damn it. Of course not. Chen Hao shook off Li Feng's arm and couldn't help but curse again. He said gloomily. Obviously, even Li Feng and the other two thought that Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lien had already intercourse. It was also because of this that the three of them didn't interrupt the subtle relationship between Tan Tai Lien and Chen Hao during this period of time. This was because they truly couldn't sense any desire to possess Tan Tai Lien from Chen Hao. In fact, it was no different from when he hadn't obtained the Phoenix's inheritance. They couldn't understand, so they didn't interfere. Boom boom boom. The terrifying explosions in the arena and the cries of surprise from the audience made Chen Hao temporarily put down the gloominess in his heart and look at Tan Tai Lien, who had already started fighting. Zhong Yandong was very cautious, but he was completely suppressed by Tan Tai Lien. Tan Tai Lien was very wild. Her powerful mental strength fused with the majestic and terrifying pure yang energy. Under her control, it transformed into terrifying sword beams. Furthermore, under her powerful control, it sealed off any possibility of Zhong Yandong dodging or fighting. She floated in the air, her eyes were sharp and her face was cold. As she attacked, she approached Zhong Yandong at a steady pace, but it was filled with menace. She had not even unleashed the power of the Phoenix's inheritance, but she had already gained the absolute advantage. This was what was truly shocking. When Tan Tai Lian was only 30 meters away from Zhong Yandong was forced to admit defeat due to Tan Tai Lian's terrifying strength. This was because he really could not be sure if he would be able to survive when the other party unleashed the power of the inheritance. Under countless gazes and exclamations, Tan Tai Lian flew back to Qin Hao and sat down in silence. She saw Qin Hao's straight and somewhat strange gaze, but she had no choice but to avoid it. Ever since that night, she tried her best not to look or think about it. This was because she was afraid that she would lose even her most basic dignity and modesty. She was afraid that she would fall into those deep black eyes. Qin Hao wanted to say something, but he realized that he was not good with words, especially when facing a woman. At this moment, he was even more speechless. What should he say? Of course Qin Hao knew, and so did Tan Tai Lian. Everyone else thought that the two of them had intercourse. Although the two of them really did not, for a girl, this kind of thing was too hurtful. Humph, Tan Tai Lian. I, Fan Fong, will let you die a good death. I will let Qin Hao watch as you die. From afar, Fan Fong's vicious eyes flashed with a strange and evil light. He stared at Tan Tai Lian, who had flown back to the contestant seating area, and thought to himself. When he saw the scene of Fan Yin's death in the Seal of Life and Death, Qin Hao was the main culprit who killed Fan Yin, and Tan Tai Lian was an accomplice. Qin Hao had to die, and so did Tan Tai Lian. However, staring at Tan Tai Lian's beautiful figure, Fan Fong, who had already lost his beloved sister, had a twisted mind that could better vent the hatred in his heart. I will let you die a good death, a good death. Under the extreme perverted excitement, Fan Fong's face flashed with an evil aura, and he could not help but murmur to himself. Xian, who was next to Fan Fong, was shocked. She frowned deeply, and her eyes imperceptibly looked at Dong Fangting, who was closer to her. Soon, it was time for the third and fourth contestants of each group to take the stage. In these 10 matches, no more inherited divine beasts appeared. There were 2 matches that were the most outstanding. One was Leng Yihan of Group 3. He, who was ranked 3rd on the Pagoda Monument, killed the disciple ranked 43rd in one move. This was the only battle after the top 20 where he killed an opponent. Qin Hao was shocked to the core, especially the style of Leng Yihan's sword. It was really breathtaking. Moreover, what shocked Qin Hao even more was that the aura that this guy released in an instant had actually advanced to 9th grade martial ancestor. When Leng Yihan had talked to Qin Hao, he had casually said that he wanted to break through a little. At that time, Qin Hao had not thought much of it, thinking that Leng Yihan must have reached the peak of 6th grade martial ancestor, and could break through the barrier at any time. That was why he had said that. However, in less than 2 days, the little he said had actually advanced by 3 grades. This was simply inconceivable. What a monstrous existence. At least, Qin Hao did not think that he could do it. Even if he did not have any barriers, how could he advance by 3 grades in 2 days if he started to crazily refine his origin energy? Other than Leng Yihan, which shocked Qin Hao, there was another battle that made Qin Hao feel a trace of threat. In fact, not only did Qin Hao feel threatened, but all the disciples in the top 10 felt a huge threat, especially those who were sure that they would be able to advance. Even more so. Group 10, Number 4, Kang Linghong. Kang Linghong, ranked 20th on the Black Pagoda Monument, was ranked 2nd in Qin Hao's group, second only to Qin Hao. He, who had drawn number 4, had decisively surrendered the moment he appeared on the stage. The 7-colored light shrouded him, dazzling him. That was the symbol of stepping into the martial saint realm. Who dared to fight him? Just based on the realm alone, Kang Linghong had directly risen to the level of the most powerful contender for the championship. Moreover, some people had vaguely guessed something. Although Kang Linghong did not reveal any aura of the divine beast inheritance, the dragon roar that came from the mountain last night made the cultivators who lived near the mountain and knew that Kang Linghong and the others lived on the mountain suspect that Kang Linghong was the one who inherited the divine beast Azure Dragon. Kang Linghong, who had a complacent, arrogant, and proud expression, flew slowly in the air as he returned to the contestants' seating area, enjoying the glory of being the center of attention. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he looked provocatively at Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lian, who were sitting together, before returning to his seat. Martial Saint. Tan Tai Lian frowned deeply and could not help but look at Chen Hao. Yang Fan, Li Yifeng, and Ni Jianping also looked at Chen Hao. Chen Hao did not look at the four of them. Instead, he stared in the direction of the arena with a cold expression. Chen Hao. Did you hear the discussion of those disciples over there? This Kong Linghong is very likely the one who inherited the divine beast Azure Dragon. Otherwise, how could he, who was originally a 9th-grade martial ancestor, become a martial saint so quickly? He must have used the power of the inheritance to break through. Look at his complacent expression, it's obvious that he doesn't take you seriously. Li Yifeng said. Martial ancestor and martial saint are only one step apart, but they are the acquired realm and the connate realm. This gap is not something a martial emperor and martial ancestor can compare to. Chen Hao, as a brother, whether you want to hear it or not, I, Yang Fan, still have to say it. It's not that easy to be in the top 3. Furthermore, Fan Feng wants to kill you. Without the protection of a sect, I really don't know how you can escape. If it's possible, choose a sect. Let's all choose a sect. If you and Little Lien work together, you can also unleash the power of the Phoenix's inheritance. As long as you stay in the sect for a few years, I believe that no matter how talented Fan Feng is, he won't be able to threaten you. I think so too, Ni Jianping also said. Tan Tai Lian did not speak, but she looked at Chen Hao. Without a doubt, this was what she had been looking forward to the most. However, because of the girl that Chen Hao had mentioned, she had forcibly suppressed this anticipation. We'll see. Chen Hao took a deep breath and said ambiguously. One only needed to imagine the power of the Azure Dragon's inheritance when he and Tan Tai Lian worked together to make a guess. Furthermore, although he had not truly merged his yin and yang with Tan Tai Lian, he had completed the first step of merging. As for the second step, he had never thought of completing it. Furthermore, even if he completed it with the help of the mysterious existence in his mind, so what? Without the true merging of yin and yang, the Phoenix's inheritance was of little value. It could not be merged into one body. Furthermore, he had never thought of using the Phoenix's inheritance to rush into the top 3. Looking at Chen Hao's sharp and determined gaze, Tan Tai Lian, Yang Fan, and the other 3 knew that their persuasion had no effect. Amidst the shock and discussion of the crowd, the duel between number 5 and number 6 began again. Number 6 in the first group, Gao Jianfei, his opponent admitted defeat and won. Number 5 in the second group, Lu Feiyu, who was ranked 12th on the Black Pagoda tablet, displayed a powerful combat strength and defeated his opponent ranked 22nd in a minute. Number 5 and 6 in the third group had mediocre performances. Number 6 won. When it came to the fourth group, the highly anticipated Divine Beast's inheritance appeared again. This made the low-level disciples who participated in the Shenwu ruins experience very depressed. Up until now, no one had heard of any sect disciple obtaining the Divine Beast's inheritance during the experience. Now, the Divine Beast Qilin's inheritance appeared again. The expert ranked 34th on the Black Pagoda tablet, number 5 in the fourth group, Ao Huaguang. His tower-like majestic body caused a commotion the moment he appeared. His bulging muscles were like those of an ancient ferocious beast that contained a terrifying and explosive power. Around him, the enormous and majestic body of the Qilin god beast was faintly flashing. This aura made the expert ranked 14th on the Black Pagoda tablet, who was full of confidence, choose to admit defeat unwillingly. The combat strength between 14 and 34 was equal. How could he defeat the lucky one who obtained the Divine Beast's inheritance? Requesting monthly votes and recommendation votes. Thank you. Continue to add the third update. Chapter 185. Third update, looking for monthly votes and recommendation votes, thank you. Chapter 180, Decision, Awakening, Group 10, Number 7 Murongbai and Number 8 Chinhao, please come on stage. The referee's voice sounded, and Chinhao immediately flew to the arena. From the 4th group's 5th contestant, Ao Huaguang, to the 5th and 6th contestants, and then from the 1st group's 7th and 8th contestants, all the way to the 10th group's Murongbai and Chinhao's contestants, there were no exciting performances. Only a few seated contestants showed their powerful strength. The divine beast White Tiger's inheritance that everyone was looking forward to had not appeared yet. It was the only divine beast inheritance that had not appeared yet. Murongbai was ranked 110 on the Black Pagoda. Facing Chinhao, a seated contestant who had obtained the Phoenix inheritance, plus the rumors about Chinhao, he did not have the courage to enter the arena and chose to admit defeat. Chinhao ran back and forth in despair. He could only sigh that his opponents were too weak. Until now, he and the other 3 seated contestants still had not had a chance to fight. The competition continued. In Group 3, Number 9 Yang Fan, although he had comprehended the essence of wind, he was still seriously injured by Number 10 Jing Yuanpeng, a 9th-grade martial grandmaster who was ranked 13 on the Black Pagoda. Yang Fan's surprise attack was absolutely terrifying, but the confident Jing Yuanpeng used his great strength to counterattack when Yang Fan's sword was about to reach him. When it was time for Number 9 and 10 of Group 5 to enter the arena, Number 10 contestant Yu Qiyu, a female disciple with an enchanting appearance and a seductive figure, did not show great strength at the beginning. However, when she was completely suppressed by her opponent and was about to be defeated, her aura suddenly soared crazily. The divine beast White Tiger inheritance had finally appeared. She killed her shocking opponent in one move. In one day, after 2 rounds of competition, Chinhao still did not have a chance to fight. However, the real strong contestants had already shown their talents. The most outstanding contestant was undoubtedly Kang Linghong, who was a martial saint in Group 10 and had a high chance of obtaining the Azure Dragon inheritance. Then there was Li Yuren in Group 1 with the Black Tortoise inheritance, Ao Huaguang in Group 4 with the Kailan inheritance, Yu Qiyu in Group 5 with the White Tiger inheritance, and Chu Liqin in Group 7 with the Vermilion Bird inheritance. In addition to these 5 contestants who had revealed the Divine Beast inheritance, there were also several powerful contestants who entered the public's eyes. Chinhao. Just as Chinhao and the rest stepped out of the training ground, Dong Fangting's figure appeared beside Chinhao and said, "Let me join you tonight, senior sister, is coming with us?" Chinhao asked in surprise. "It's a sect mission. I was sent here as a lobbyist to deal with the elders. You don't have to worry about it. Water flows downwards and people walk upwards. I will not affect you," Dong Fangting said with a faint smile. Although there was nothing wrong with her expression, there was a hint of worry hidden deep within her eyes. That was especially true when she looked at Chinhao and Tan Tai Lian. Chinhao's intuition told him that Dong Fangting was not simply here to persuade the elders. In less than 10 minutes, Chinhao and the other 4, led by Dong Fangting, returned to the courtyard on the peak. As expected, after entering the courtyard, Dong Fangting called for Chinhao and the rest to enter the cultivation room together. "Senior sister, what's the matter?" Chinhao asked with a frown after entering the cultivation room. "During the competition, I received a message from Xian. She asked me to ask about the specific situation when you killed Fan Fang's sister." "The specific situation?" "I just killed her with a punch." "What's wrong?" "Not that. Fan Fang had formed the seal of life and death with his sister. When she dies, Fan Fang can see the scene of his sister's death through the seal of life and death. Xian said that Fan Fang said today that he wanted all of you to die, and it's very likely that he would do something even worse to Xiaoyan, and according to what Tai Zigong said, Fan Fang might not let any of you off." Tan Tai Lian, Li Yifeng, Yang Fan, and Ni Jianpei's expressions changed slightly as they looked at Chinhao. Then, Tan Tai Lian said, "I'm not afraid. At most, I'll cultivate in the sect. No matter how strong he is, would he dare to attack the sect? It's just that." Tan Tai Lien looked at Qin Hao and did not continue. Yang Fan and the other two did the same. Qin Hao's brows were deeply furrowed. His black eyes were unusually cold. He did not speak, as if he was deep in thought. His target is the dragon transformation list. Tan Tai Lien could not help but send a message to Dong Fangting. What? Dong Fangting's eyes widened in shock. She grabbed Qin Hao and said, "What are you thinking? Without the sex protection, with Fan Fang's cultivation, how could you hide? If I'm not wrong, he has already locked onto your aura. Fan Fang may be in the golden core stage, but he can even form the seal of life and death. Do you know what this means? If you insist on doing things your own way, you'll only get yourself killed. The only way is to choose a sect and concentrate on cultivation. When you've truly grown and are strong enough to fight him, you won't have to hide anymore. Can't you even tolerate this?" Qin Hao looked at Dong Fangting in shock. Ever since they met, Dong Fangting had never lost her temper. But now, the dragon transformation list is indeed of a higher level than the 100 Empire ranking. But don't think that your talent is so great that you can stand out on the dragon transformation list. Those disciples are all super geniuses from big clans in the cultivation world. If you don't join a sect now, you're like a wandering cultivator without roots. Your cultivation conditions are 100 times worse than those of sect disciples, and you're suppressed everywhere. How fast can you improve? In 2 years, even if you're lucky enough to escape Fan Fang's pursuit, how much can you improve? 6th grade Martial Saint is the minimum requirement to register for the Dragon Transformation list. There are plenty of martial gods, and Golden Core stage is not rare. These are all geniuses below the age of 20. Disciples from our dynasty can't compare to them at all. I don't know why you insist on participating in the Dragon Transformation list, but this time, you must. I'll listen to you. Qin Hao suddenly said, "Senior sister, can you let go of my shoulder? If you continue to hold on, my bones will be crushed by your grip." Dong Fangting was slightly taken aback by Qin Hao's words. She immediately released Qin Hao's shoulder and asked, "Are you serious?" Tan Tai Lien, Yang Fan, and the other three looked at Qin Hao in shock. They immediately heaved a sigh of relief. This was a bull, a stubborn guy to the point of madness. Although Tan Tai Lien couldn't help but tell Dong Fangting, the four of them didn't have much hope. But now, Qin Hao had actually agreed. "Really? Senior sister, does your sect have the strength to protect us?" "Our sect?" "Yes," Qin Hao said with a serious expression. "Our sect is only of 3rd grade, it doesn't matter what grade you are. I only want to know if your sect has the ability to let us stay in the sect." "That's not a problem. Even if it's a 1st grade sect, as long as you're in the sect, no one would dare to do anything to you. Even the sect leader of the Flying Sword sect doesn't have this ability, but we're only of 3rd grade. Qin Hao, you don't have to worry about your relationship with me. My sword will let you choose the 7th grade sect, the Myriad Pill Pavilion." Hearing Dong Fangting's words, Tan Tai Lien and the other three looked at Qin Hao. Their expressions were obviously more inclined towards the Myriad Pill Pavilion that Dong Fangting had mentioned. "I'd rather be the head of a chicken than the tail of a phoenix," Qin Hao said with a slight smile. "Then why do you insist on participating in the Dragon Transformation list?" Dong Fangting couldn't help but ask. "For one thing, it's to vent my anger. Secondly, I never wanted to join any sect. I want to be a freelance cultivator. A freelance cultivator with no restrictions," Qin Hao said. "A freelance cultivator? Are you crazy? A freelance cultivator can't even obtain a decent cultivation technique. What are you cultivating?" "This. I don't think it's very important," Qin Hao seemed to say reluctantly. In the eyes of Dong Fangting, Tan Tai Lien, and the other four, he seemed to have completely ignored them. In reality, what they didn't know was that the reason Chen Hao wanted to be a freelance cultivator without any restrictions was because of the secrets of the Taoist canon in his mind. Once he stepped into the golden elixir stage, he would truly begin his own cultivation. How would he lack cultivation techniques? He believed that combining Taoist techniques and martial arts techniques would allow his strength to increase rapidly. Besides this, there was another reason that attracted Chen Hao to be a freelance cultivator. That was because he didn't have to shoulder any responsibilities or concerns. But this time, the news that Dong Fangting brought and the words that she had just said made Chen Hao understand that it was impossible for people to be free of responsibilities. In the past, he was able to do that because, strictly speaking, he was a person who had completely sealed himself off and refused to accept anyone. Could the current him do that? No. But now, it seems impossible. Alright, senior sister, I'll choose your Zhaixing sect. What about you? If you think my level is too low, you're free to. Chen Hao suddenly seemed to become a different person as he looked at Tan Tailian, Yang Fan, and the other three. Although he said they were free to choose, the expression on his face clearly said that if they dared to do as they pleased, he would cut ties with them. So what if I'm third level? Didn't you say that? The level isn't important. What's important is whether it suits me. I've long felt that the Zhaixing sect suits me. Of course, I'm fine with it. That's what I thought too, Yang Fan said with a smile on his ordinary face. You've spoken my mind. Ni Jianpain, who was as solemn as a mountain, actually grinned and said. Tan Tailian only nodded, her face slightly red. This. Dong Fangting was a little surprised and didn't know what to say. The so-called lobbyist was indeed real. Elder Wu meant for her to fight for Li Yifeng and Ni Jianpain, the two weakest. As for Yang Fan, who had rushed into the top 10, there was no hope. Not to mention Chen Hao and Tan Tailian. But at this moment, they seemed to have won 6 at once. How great was this credit? But, you're really choosing the Zhaixing sect? Are you sure you're not being impulsive? I'm sure. Senior sister, look at how happy you are. Is the reward very great? Tan Tailian, Yang Fan, and the other three were once again surprised that Chen Hao actually joked. Very great. If it's true, it's really great, then remember to share some benefits with us. Don't doubt whether it's true or not. The Zhaixing sect, what a domineering name. I didn't think much of it at first, but the more I think about it, the more it fits. Chen Hao said with a smile. At this moment, Tan Tailian and the other three suddenly wondered if the person in front of them was the original Chen Hao. Yes, and no. Even Chen Hao himself didn't expect that after making this decision, his entire soul seemed to have undergone a baptism, as if the dark clouds had parted to reveal the sun and moon. He made this decision for the sake of Tan Tailian, Yang Fan, Li Yifeng, and Ni Jianpain. This also made him understand that the determination in his heart, the strong desire to become stronger, had sunk into the obsession of his former self. But unfortunately, he was no longer the person he used to be, and he couldn't be heartless at all. Fortunately, he chose to join a sect for the sake of the four of them. Even more fortunately, after making this choice, he understood that he had sunk into obsession. But now, he was clear-headed. Begging for monthly votes. Chapter 186. 2 days later. The competition for the top 10 had been going on for 3 days. Every contestant had completed 6 matches. Among the groups with Divine Beasts inheritances, other than the 10th seeded contestant, Chen Hao, who had yet to meet the martial sage, Kang Linghong, who had obtained the Azure Dragon's inheritance, the other 4 groups had all fought against the seeded contestants. In the first group, Li Yuran, who had obtained the Black Tortoise's inheritance, met the first-ranked Gao Jianfei. To everyone's surprise, they ended in a draw. In the fourth group, Ao Huaguang, who had obtained the Kailan's inheritance, defeated the seeded contestant, Yuan Hao. In the fifth group, Yu Qiyu, who had obtained the White Tiger's inheritance, defeated the seeded contestant, Ren Yujiang. In the 7th group, Chu Liqin, who had obtained the Vermilion Bird's inheritance, defeated the seeded contestant, Xian Yuanhong. Other than Li Yuran, Ao Huaguang, Yu Qiyu, and Chu Liqin had all advanced to the martial sage realm, so far, for martial sages had appeared in the 100 Empire ranking. Furthermore, everyone knew that the 5th martial sage would be born very soon. That was Li Yuran. It was obvious that Li Yuran had not completed the first step of merging with the Black Tortoise. Otherwise, he would have advanced to the martial sage realm like the other 4. As for Qin Hao and Tan Tai Lian, who had obtained the Phoenix's inheritance, no one could be sure. After all, compared to the 5 divine beasts, the Phoenix was of little value. Tan Tai Lian, who had also obtained the Phoenix's inheritance, had already admitted defeat when she met Kong Linghong. Today, the most anticipated match was between Qin Hao and Kong Linghong. In the 10th group, number 4 Kong Linghong and number 8 Qin Hao, please enter the stage. Crash! Following the referee's announcement, the highly anticipated match was finally about to begin. Instantly, everyone looked at Qin Hao. Yes, they were looking at Qin Hao. Because no one could be sure whether Qin Hao would fight or not. Whoosh! Qin Hao did not give the crowd too much time to wait. When Kong Linghong flew into the arena, he turned into a ray of light and landed on the arena. Leng Yihan, who had always been lazy, suddenly twitched his mouth. A small dimple appeared on his face. Dong Fangting, Tan Tai Lian, and the rest were slightly nervous. Even Xian Xian was no exception. Fan Fong was also a little nervous, but he wasn't nervous about the outcome of the battle between Qin Hao and Kong Linghong. Instead, he was worried that Qin Hao would die at the hands of Kong Linghong. That would be too easy for Qin Hao. On the huge arena, Qin Hao's figure was as straight as a sword. Facing Kong Linghong, whose body was faintly flashing with 7-colored light, his face was calm, and no emotions could be seen at all. Only a pair of deep black eyes were shining faintly. I've finally encountered a battle that makes me somewhat excited. Qin Hao, come, I'll let you experience the power of a martial saint. When the referee announced the start of the match, Kong Linghong unhurriedly activated his 7-colored protective aura and said lightly. His expression was lazy and his tone was arrogant. It was obvious that he didn't see Qin Hao as an opponent. Especially when it was said out loud. Only the strength of a martial saint. I advise you to use the power of the Azure Dragon inheritance, or you'll die a miserable death. Qin Hao's expression was still calm. His clear, but even more arrogant voice was transmitted to everyone's ears. At this moment, Qin Hao's aura suddenly soared. His body actually began to shine with a faint 7-colored light, circulating the 5 elements, and the aura of yin and yang of heaven and earth, instantly spreading out. Bang! What shocked Leng Yihan, Dong Fangting, Tan Tai Lian, and all those familiar with Qin Hao was that at this moment, Qin Hao actually made his move, brazenly charging at his opponent and attacking. How could this be? Didn't he know how to play to his strengths and avoid his weaknesses? This guy, what is he doing? Leng Yihan frowned. Even if Leng Yihan wanted to fight, he wouldn't dare to choose this method because of the difference in cultivation level and the difference in inherited divine beasts. Only by integrating with all things in the world and relying on the power of the wind attribute's true essence would Qin Hao have a better chance of winning. What was the difference between fighting head-on like this and seeking death? You're not qualified. I'd like to see who will die miserably. Before everyone's gazes, Kong Linghong stared at Qin Hao, who was rushing over like lightning. He was not in a hurry, and as he spoke, his body moved. Enveloped by the 7-colored light, he rose into the air. His expression became cold and disdainful, emitting a strong bone-chilling killing intent. It was true killing intent. In reality, Kong Linghong had never looked down on Qin Hao. Even though he was confident that he could easily defeat Qin Hao, he did not dare to look down on him. Qin Hao was only a rank 8 martial emperor before he started his training. In a short 9 months, he was able to distinguish himself among the geniuses of the 100 Empire ranking and stand on the highest stage as a seed. Who would dare to look down on him? Furthermore, Kong Linghong was certain that the sect's elders wanted Chen Hao much more than the disciples who obtained the inheritance of divine beasts and became martial saints. That was because Chen Hao's age, talent, battle power, and the aura of the 5 elements and yin and yang of heaven and earth on his body were not something that the inherited divine beasts could compare with. With an additional competitor, there would be a decrease in importance. Especially if they both chose the same sect, his radiance would be somewhat overshadowed by Chen Hao. Thus, as long as Chen Hao dared to accept his challenge, he would think of a way to kill him. Directly revealing the power of inheritance was clearly not suitable. Otherwise, if he were to directly admit defeat, the gains would not make up for the losses. Furthermore, he believed that merely by relying on the disparity between a martial saint and a martial ancestor realm, he would be able to kill Chen Hao. Boom! After Kong Linghong spat out the word, miserable, a resplendent 7-colored pillar of energy suddenly condensed in his palm. Frightening energy fluctuations immediately spread out. In an instant, they condensed into a resplendent pillar of energy that ruthlessly shot toward the incoming Chen Hao. Kong Linghong's frightening attack was as fast as lightning. Merely the energy fluctuations it emitted were sufficient to explode any martial ancestor realm expert. As soon as he attacked, Kong Linghong displayed the true power of a martial saint. Countless people in the spectator seats were shocked. With such power, how could Chen Hao, who was only at the martial ancestor realm, resist? Everyone's gazes were filled with shock, curiosity, and pity as they gathered on Chen Hao. No one had thought that Chen Hao would stupidly choose such a head-on attack. However, in the face of Kong Linghong's swift and fierce attack, Chen Hao's expression did not change in the slightest. He did not have any intention of dodging. His wildly dashing figure suddenly froze. His right palm drew an arc in front of him at lightning speed and crossed his waist. Then, he exploded with a loud roar that reverberated through the heavens and earth as he violently struck out with his palm. Roar, roar, roar. The moment Chen Hao's palm struck out, the violent yuan power within a radius of several hundred feet instantly seemed to have been sucked away. What was even more shocking was that in an instant, Chen Hao's palm actually spat out a total of 18 energy shadows that resembled divine dragons. They spiraled and danced as they whizzed out. The whizzing sound was like the roars of 18 huge dragons exploding at the same time. The momentum was extremely shocking. Rumble. Chen Hao's palm landed solidly on the oncoming light pillar. In an instant, accompanied by a frightening explosion, a strong wind that could collapse mountains and split the earth frantically swept out. The huge main arena and even the entire martial arts practice field trembled at this moment. Break! 18 huge dragons that contained the circulation of the 5 elements and the yin and yang of heaven and earth seemed to have condensed into substance. They coiled around the energy light pillar that Chen Hao had sent out and extended upwards. Then, with a low roar from Chen Hao, the energy light pillar that was enough to kill a 9th-grade martial ancestor realm was actually forcefully exploded by Chen Hao's palm under the shocked gazes of the crowd. This. Who exactly obtained the inheritance of the Azure Dragon? In the martial arts practice field, countless people were dumbfounded and at a loss. Chen Hao, who was only a 9th-grade martial ancestor realm, was actually not at a disadvantage in his first direct confrontation. He had sent out 18 huge dragons with a palm strike. The frightening strength that he displayed caused countless people to feel that it was inconceivable. Even the eyes of the sect elders on the platform became heated. What kind of absolute skill was this? Are you qualified now? After the frightening energy storm, Chen Hao's proud and upright figure once again clearly appeared in front of the crowd. He stared at Kong Linghong, who was 100 feet away, and said with a cold and arrogant voice. Kong Linghong's pupils slowly shrank. A bone-chilling voice suddenly rang out. Since you're looking for death, I'll fulfill your wish. A strong killing intent spread out from Kong Linghong's body. The temperature of the martial arts practice field seemed to have instantly dropped to the freezing point. At this moment, everyone could see that Kang Linghong no longer dared to underestimate Chen Hao. A sparkling and resplendent green light accompanied by a strong killing intent flashed out from Kang Linghong's body at a frightening speed. Roar! At this moment, a dragon's roar resounded through the heavens and the earth. Above Kang Linghong's head, the phantom of a huge azure dragon that was dozens of feet long appeared. It circled around like lightning and directly merged into Kang Linghong's body. Kacha kacha, accompanied by a strange sound, an extremely frightening aura suddenly soared from Kang Linghong's body. What shocked the crowd even more was that Kang Linghong's exposed skin was covered with green scales that emitted a crystal light at a frightening speed. His hands were also strangely enlarged by several times, as if they had become incomparably sharp dragon claws. Before he made a move, the crowd could clearly feel that Kang Linghong's body contained an explosive energy that was enough to shatter mountains and split the earth. Is this the true strength of the divine beast inheritance? Countless people looked at Kang Linghong in a daze and muttered. In the previous battles, other than Li Yuran who had admitted defeat, the other three who had obtained the divine beast inheritance had already stepped into the martial saint realm. Even when they faced the seated contestants, they did not merge with the divine beast inheritance. As martial saints, they had easily won. At this moment, under the might of Chen Hao's palm, Kang Linghong had no choice but to display his true strength. Go to hell. Kang Linghong, who had turned into a monster covered in scales, had eyes like an ancient ferocious beast, emitting a monstrous killing intent. His body shook and suddenly, with a whoosh, his entire person seemed to have turned into a divine dragon that soared through the 9 heavens. The energy of heaven and earth churned violently as a violent and powerful aura swept through the entire incomparably huge arena. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.